Hello, hello! Are we live? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my headphones are broken. So, part of them snapped the other day. They're working, it's just the plastic casing snapped the other day. So I tried taping it back and now it's snapped off again. So, yeah, this is not great. I'm gonna try and fix this. I can still hear just fine. Not through this side. But, I'm not gonna let that stop me today. Alright. It's a shame. But, if I just turn the music down a little bit... I don't know what the right volume would be. That looks about good. It should be pretty quiet because I am also in voice chat, as always. I mean, boom. Same guy. Needs no introduction. Mr. Ambience. Mr. Ambience? Who calls him that? Ambience, Scott, my dude. Welcome to the stream. You're live.
Hello, hello. How's everybody doing?
How we doing in chat? I'm trying to fix my headphones real quick. Oh my god. This, yeah, tape's not gonna do it. Honestly, I might just have to wear them like this for a bit. I don't know. I don't have any other headphones, I don't think. But yeah. I see you in chat. ZDX was returned. Creeper, DJ, Fazbear Spooks tier list Pog. Hello, Livy. Yes, people. It's good to do a part 2. I agree. It's very exciting. I got 100k views. What the fuck? What are you talking about? Is this? This is what I think it is.
Yeah, that's your meme.
For fuck's sake. Okay, so I want to show you guys something that's pretty scary.
Dude, you're gonna be like Chirp. You're gonna get 1 million views on a video.
That is just I can't even like mentally process that. Okay, my main channel with 824 subscribers has 66,000 views in about 3 years. All right. My side channel, Matt's to Mist, has a single video that in less than a month, despite having been out for over a year, has garnered over 100,000 views. And like there's other statistics, the subscriber count is increasing rapidly, as is like the watch time and stuff. It's insane. I made this really dumb meme about Scraptrap from UCN and it's just like absolutely blown up. And I did address this. I edited a full-on response video that I pulled an all-nighter to do because I wanted to get on it as soon as possible. And it's like in the video, I pointed fun at the fact that, oh my god, almost 6k views, that's insane. And meanwhile, it's now sitting at like 100k. And in fact, the response video itself is almost 2,000. We can talk about this if you guys want. It's just kind of unbelievable, like how much attention this has got, and I don't even know how to respond. I'm just gonna keep uploading videos to Matt's to Mist. It's all, I've got a bunch of things slated for it, as well as hydrated highlights and all that crap. I mean, honestly though, shout out to True Player, because he's the one who actually created the channel, and none of this would happen without him. This guy knows how to make it. Oh, jeez. Although I didn't make that meme. And my window is... Yeah, I need to close my window. One moment, guys. Oh, it's really windy today. Forgot to shut this. Pretty cold. Just leave that. Anyways, let's get on with this. So.
Right.
Yeah. Video game got 100k views. That was insane. I'm just catching up with chat, really. We'll talk about the Kyoto TD and the chat shout out and everything later. Yeah, it's... I know. Hello, Ethan. Hello, Conan Bren. Eclipse. You're doing the wrong job. Just become a meme channel. Yeah, I guess. Video editing takes time I don't really have. That's why I don't do it as much. But yeah, it's kind of insane. It's just the one video, guys. I mean, the channel overall has gotten some attention, but it's just a tiny bit compared to the video. Like, thousands of people have just checked that video and like nothing else, but I'm trying to see if I can get some subscribers from it. You gotta do what you gotta do. Man, yeah, Scraptrap funny, yeah. Anyway, Ambience, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Been awake for quite a while, but definitely always awake enough to do some Fazbear Frights tier list, that's for sure.
Right, like Fazbear Frights, man, underrated. I think a lot of people
don't appreciate
one
of my favorite corners of the entire FNaF series, really, after playing you know, like I do, playing the max modes for like hours at a time. It's really nice to sit back with a good book and remember why you like FNaF, you know?
Agreed. The, you know, a lot of people don't read the books. Which, you know, is like fair enough, you don't have to, but Fazbear Frights is really good, guys. I would recommend it. Most of it. Like, I mean, whatever your opinion is, like, you know, it's worth checking out if you're a FNaF fan, I think. Just to be aware of what's going on with it. Anyways, is the audio balance okay? Can you guys hear ambience over the music and everything? I think it's alright.
Hopefully it's good.
I'm just gonna turn the music down again slightly. It might just be me, though. How's this looking? Oh, man. Yeah, no, I'm gonna turn this down. There we go. Yeah, okay. My music might be too quiet now, but that's better than too loud. So, for those of you who don't know, we're ranking the Fazbear Frights stories, alright? If you haven't seen part 1, go check it out. This is part 2. We, you know, had so much to talk about that we've had to divide this into 2 streams, so I'm doing a bonus debate direct this week. Previously, we discussed, rightly earlier, Fazbear Frights stories in a tier list. We're going to finish it. We're going to go through the later volumes now. We did volumes 1 to 6 in the last stream. We're doing volumes 7 to 12, or 11, today. And, you know, we're talking about the characters, the plot, even the lore of FNaF. There's a lot going on, okay? And the tier list template's linked in the description if you want it. Don't mind that. I'm just going to unpin these, finally. It's great that these actually save. I was able to, like, shut down my computer and, like, I don't know, the cache or the cookies or whatever, so I can still save my tier list and alignment chart where they are. So we were basically just going through the stories, talking about, you know, what we liked, didn't like. My criteria for this, and ambience as well, is pretty much, you know, writing, good horror, good FNaF. It's all just up to opinion, but if you want to make your own, feel free to, you know, create it with the link in the description and share it. I have a Discord server. Ambience has a Discord server. He's already posted his on both servers, which you can check out, and I'm going to finish mine today. So let's begin with the cliffs. And you know what, Ambience, you can start. What did you think of the cliffs, the first story of Volume 7?
So, the Cliffs is a pretty interesting story because on the surface it seems like a very simple story, pretty short one, you know. I actually like it for what it is, like a nice little wholesome deviation from all the bad endings that we've seen in the series recently, because a lot of these stories end poorly for the protagonist. But yeah, this one actually ends pretty nicely. Robert finds his son, he reunites with him. It's a nice little wholesome happy ending, and I do like it for what it is on the surface level, but I actually think that there's more going on here. There's a lot of theories about how the ending could potentially be changed from what it appears to be, how there could be more than meets the eye. But on top of that, I think this one actually has a bit more lore relevance than people give it credit for, because I actually see Robert as being a pretty strong parallel to Henry. I think there's a lot of similarities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You know, it's like a depressed, basically like a struggling dad who loses his kid in some way. In Charlie's case, of course, she gets murdered, but he just like loses his son Tyler here in the story, and he becomes overwhelmed with grief to the point that he considers committing suicide, which is something that Henry also does in the novels. So it's an interesting little connection there. I think there's a bit more relevance in this one than people tend to give it credit for.
I hadn't thought of that, but now that you say it, it lines perfectly. Guys, the Cliffs, for me, is honestly, I don't know if it's S-rank, but it's definitely a story I like. I would rate it fairly highly because it broke the mold. Instead of following the, you know, tropes that had really started to, like, you know, grow in, like, the late half of Frights, it was, like, a really different story, really unique story. The premise is simple. It's like, Robert, like, buys this, you know, tag-along Freddy toy to, like, you know, help keep an eye on his child, because he's struggling. His wife died in the birth of his son, so it's like, you know, it's a very deeply emotional story, because, like, he really freaks out when the child goes missing as well, and, like, most of the story is just the emotional turmoil of this struggling dad who has lost, you know, like, the you know, a family member again. But it actually has a good ending. It actually has a sweet ending. No one dies, no one gets their bodies stolen. It just turns out that, well, basically, in the town he lives in, the Cliffs are infamous for being a place where people commit suicide. It's like a place people go to end their lives. And, like, plush toy keeps telling him to go to the Cliffs, because apparently that's where his kid is, but he interprets that as it, you know, making fun of him, and we think, oh, it's like haunted, creepy, tapping into his memories, and it's like, he goes there to commit suicide when he hears, you know, cries of his son, and he finds Tyler there after chucking Tag-along Freddy, like, to the bottom of, like, the cliffs, which is why, you know, in the image it's all broken up. And yeah, I don't know, I really, really loved it for the, like, depth of the characters. It took a lot of time to, like, really focus on Robert's experience, and it was really tense the whole way through. It was just incredibly tense, and it wasn't even, like, necessarily scary, it was just kind of, like, frightening because it was tragic, because you felt like something really bad was gonna happen, or, like, get worse. But it didn't. It was a story of hope, rather than, like, you know, I don't know, like, consequences, or revenge, or loss, or fear, or whatever, like, from, like, all these other stories.
Yeah.
And yeah, the lore relevance.
Definitely a welcome change-up, I think, from the rest of the Fazbear Frights stories.
Absolutely.
The later half. But yeah, the thing that I do like about the series, or not the series, sorry, the story, is that it's another one of those stories where it feels like it kind of could really happen. Like, there's a bit of speculation about what's going on with Tag-Along Freddy.
Yeah.
I think he's with by a friendly spirit. Others think it's just his technology. But assuming it is just his technology, like trying to tell Robert where Tyler is, this story could actually happen, and it's still scary from the perspective of an adult, because this isn't like supernatural body snatching horror. This is something that adults worry about, like if your kid goes missing, you know?
Yeah,
so
I forgot about that.
It manages to be like a different kind of scary than any other Fright story.
Honestly, I think this might be a bit biased, but I'm really tempted to give this an S rank, just because I mean, I like it. It's well written, you know, pacing and the characters and everything is great. But on top of that, like, it's just unique. And how well executed it is in doing something different, it's like one of the few stories where, I mean, that I've heard other like interpretations, but the way I like to enjoy the story is that Tag-Along Freddy works. He's not haunted, there's nothing wrong with his AI, he's literally just doing what he was programmed to do, and he's saying the cliffs because, like, however he functions, like, that's where Tyler is. I mean, yeah, I think there's, like, a tracking device, like, the you know, technology in FNaF's always been a bit, like, weird, but, like, it's not, like, anything paranormal, it's just, like, and that makes it more realistic, as you say, which is, like, really frightening, because it could actually happen. Like, a lot of these stories, like, in the flesh, just really freak me out, but, you know, something that, you know, that calms me down a bit with some of the stories that actually scare me, is that they're so unrealistic they couldn't ever possibly happen. But this one could. I haven't even thought about this in a lot of detail, because it's been ages since I read this, and I haven't thought about it much since, because I've been going through all of these other, like, more recent volumes. But yeah, the cliffs, like, really stuck out to me, when I first read it, and I don't know, I think, honestly, I'm gonna give it the S rank. I'm gonna give it the S rank, because it's just really unique.
I think that's fair. I, like, personally wouldn't quite put it at an S rank, but I still really like the story. One more thing that I like about it.
Yeah.
So I brought this up in passing to Matt before, but so there's this theory that the Cliffs actually has a darker ending than is originally interpreted.
Yes.
I can kind of give, like, a brief overview of what the theory is. Basically, it's basically saying that, like, in the ending of the story, Robert didn't actually find Tyler. He essentially went insane and believed that Tag-Along Freddy was his son. There's a few clues pointing to this, so I can see where people kind of drew the interpretation. But the thing I like about it, it really doesn't lean one way or the other. Like, you can interpret this story however you want. If you want it to be a extremely dark and brutal and depressing story, then there's quite a bit of evidence pointing toward that. But if you want to take it surface level, give it the happy ending that it seems to have, then there's quite a bit of evidence pointing toward that too. So
yeah,
I think the Frights are bleak enough at this point. So I think we can agree that, like, we'd rather it be the happy ending. That's kind of what I always view the story as.
I have to agree. I love ambiguous endings, but for me personally, the dark interpretation that, like, for whatever reason, like, Robert's insane, you know, thinks he's found Tyler, but it's actually Tag-Along Freddy, whether that's, like, you know, there's anything paranormal or, like, you know, illusion discs or whatever crap involved, I think that ruins the story. I mean, it's just personal, but also, yeah, Frights is already super bleak. Like, having a story be this kind of dark while also remaining hopeful and actually really solidly going for a good ending in what is actually not only a very dark and gritty situation, but one that's completely different to the other stories, because it doesn't rely on anything, you know, supernatural. It's just, like, you know, a realistic and emotional one. It's just like, there's nothing else like it, and I think the emotional weight of this story kind of relies on it not being like the other stories where it's like, oh, the doll was haunted by agony, so, you know, because, you know, we've seen that done in a lot of ways.
It kind of, it feels like it just fits better thematically, like it really is the happy surface level ending.
Of course, if there were, like, more happy endings in general, maybe, like, I'd be interested in darker interpretations, but I think there's other stories that do that well. And I've been quite generous here, guys, so I'm sorry for putting everything in the top ranks, but I really do love Fazbear Frights, and it's like, these are the highlights. Let's move on, though. No time.
It's hard for me to rank a lot of stories low. Like, aside from a few ones that, like, pretty much everyone agrees are the worst of the bunch, it's really hard for me to rank stories in the series low.
I'm actually... So, yeah, also the lore relevance, hadn't thought of this, but yeah, like... Henry Emily...
It's got a slight amount of lore relevance, bit of parallels there.
Yeah, because Henry Emily is honestly, like, the more I think about it, the more I think he's probably one of the most developed, like, characters in FNaF lore. And it's kind of weird, because he barely shows up in a lot of the newer content, but from his, like, the Insanity ending, you know, true ending speeches in, you know, Pizza Sim, combined with, you know, what we get in the novel trilogy, and then maybe some stuff like this from Frights, there's quite a lot about him that we can, like, not only know and learn about, but also imagine and kind of headcanon. Because obviously Robert is his own character, but I can imagine being similar. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's just a legend, really, because, I don't know, he's got a really interesting arc. He's never, like, evil, but he starts off as this very kind of naive and cowardly figure who turns a blind eye to, like, what his partner William is doing, but ultimately, like, redeems himself and actually, you know, succeeds where everyone else failed and ends everything. You know, unless you believe certain theories. Anyway, so I guess if you're ready, we'll move on to the next story. I'm just catch up with chat as well.
Yeah, sure. The Breaking Wheel. This is one that I feel like is going to be a little bit controversial, but I actually think the story is quite possibly among the best.
Really? Yeah. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay, so this story does paranoia feel like nothing else. The entire story is pretty much nothing but build-up, and it actually does it really well. And it's constantly making you think, because the entire time you're wondering, is Reed imagining this? Like, just, is he overthinking everything, or does he have a point here? Is he, like, properly paranoid? And it starts to lean a bit more toward the, okay, he's probably exaggerating a little bit toward the end, and then bam, this terrifying, like, huge-ass Julius exoskeleton busts into the house in, like, the scariest way possible, and you realize all in one moment, yeah, Reed was not making this up. Like, he was properly paranoid, and reading this story again on a second read-through is terrifying, because you know that everything that he's thinking, that he is trying to convince himself that he's paranoid about, is probably actually happening.
Yeah. I have only read this once, but I remember when reading, I was flipping back and forth between, is this imagined or is this actually happening? Like, why would they include this? What are we supposed to think? So, I think I can kind of get that. When I first read this story, I didn't like it very much, just because it felt a little bit random. Like, the plot line, the entire plot was kind of short, and there was, like, there was no sign that this was a FNaF story. I feel like a few lines to indicate that maybe this is connected to Springlock suits or something would have been enough. And again, it's one of those stories that for me doesn't, like, feel like a FNaF story. It just, like, it doesn't have any connection to anything, and, you know, it just kind of feels, like, very weird and out of place for that. However, it is a good story. I do agree that, like, the duality of the kind of, like Reed's uncertain, the whole, like, mental process, of, like, his guilt building up and, like, him imagining, it's super interesting. And, like, you know, the characters are pretty well written. Like, Julius is you know, I think he's a fairly believable school bully, and, you know, Reed and, you know, I forget the others' names, but, like, the friends, you know, in the house he goes over, it's,
yeah.
I don't know, I just feel like it needed a bit more explanation, because I do like a good mystery and, like, ambiguous endings, but, like, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. I think I need to reread it, honestly. Where would I rank this, though? This is a story that I feel like it's better on a second read through, honestly. That might be the case.
It's really just, like, I definitely see where you're coming from about this not feeling like a FNaF story. It really doesn't. The only thing I can connect it to is Springlock failures, you know, like William Afton, Springtrap. There's kind of a parallel there.
Yeah.
But besides that, there's not really any big connection to Freddy, so I can see what you mean there. For me, the only reason that I really like this story is because I think this is one of the only examples in the later volumes of horror done right. This is insane paranoia fueled the whole way through. It's got psychological horror with the back and forth thing. It's got physical horror. Julius looks pretty messed up in the exoskeleton, but it's not completely over the top like in the flesh. It's all just really good horror, and I think it's really well balanced. The only thing that drags it down is pretty much no lore relevance and just not feeling like a FNaF story.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of felt, I don't know, short. Maybe that's the point though. Maybe it's a very specific kind of story, because I think it's supposed to be the one that kind of sticks with you after you've read it as well. Just because of you still don't know quite what was going on, and it's like you have an idea, but it's like I think the unknown is a big factor of the horror here. Does anyone remember when there was actually a scrapped cover for the Breaking Wheel that they were going to use for Fazbear Frights 7?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I've seen that.
I'm trying to find the image, because this was actually going to be the first story or something. They were going to use it on the cover. But they scrapped it because it was, like, too scary.
It might be on the FNaF Wiki. I know it's on, this game is
Here it is.
This book has a, yeah, there you go.
I got it. So, guys, this was originally going to be the cover art of Volume 7.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to lie.
Because it was too scary. Like, think about that. For a Fazbear Fright story, this was considered too scary.
I think it goes to show, like, how much this series, has, maybe kept its target audience in the lower age range. But also, like, how hard Fazbear Frights goes compares to the FNaF games. I think the scariest thing that's explicit in the FNaF games is, like, rare Easter eggs of Springtrap in FNaF 3. Or, like, just, like, jump scares, or like, and then there's implicitly, maybe stuff from Sister Location, like Michael getting scooped, right? And then there's implicitly, the stuff like, the psychological effects of, like, FNaF 4, and the, zombification of Michael, but again, it's shown through, like, 8-bit minigames. Fazbear Frights doesn't hold back. It goes full force, but as you say, it doesn't do it in a way that is kind of too comical to be believable. This story, I think, had just the right amount of tension and just the right balance of, like, how much of this is Reed's imagination and, like, how much of this is accurate. And, what actually becomes of Julius with this weird, like, morphing Springlock suit kind of thing, utterly terrifying, because it's like, he's not quite dead, but he's maybe undead or, like, on the way, and it's like, we don't know if, Reed survives or not either. And, like, what happens to them after this is over? It's a very, like, it's a complete loose end. Again, with a lot of things in Fazbear Frights, in terms of the overarching narrative, I think you can safely assume a lot of these loose ends are haunted items that end up in, the, Stitch Wraith's Jake's hands by, like, Epilogue 5, Epilogue 6, Epilogue 7. But, like, you still wonder, but yeah, like, just look at this, man. It's also one of the few times we've seen, like, fully drawn, detailed humans, because we did get this with Volume 11, but I don't think anything else really did. Yeah. But, man, yeah, I think, Breaking Wheel, lore relevance as well. I'd say the lore relevance is relatively low. It's got some vague connections to Springlock suits, but doesn't actually say any. I remember it sticking out to me because it was the first Fazbear Fright story that had, like, zero reference to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza or Remnant or anything. You just kind of assume.
Yeah, I feel like this is pretty low on the lore relevance spectrum. I think it's very well written, but again, it doesn't really feel like a FNaF story, which is the only thing that could bog it down a bit. But yeah. I think it's hard, like, at its finest in the later volumes. So, like, I don't think it ever reached this point again. It's
definitely better than a lot of the later stories. I mean, just my opinion, guys, but I think Fazbear Frights went downhill after Volume 6. Not with the epilogues. The epilogues are pretty consistent, but I think a lot of the main stories were not that good. They were more miss than hit. I'm gonna give Breaking Wheel a C, maybe a B. I'm really not sure, because, like, I agree with you, but I think I need to reread it, because I remember not enjoying it that much. And that might just be like a preference thing. I'm also catching up with chat. And, yeah, finished Silver Eyes Conan, nice. Personally, I've never, like, ranked the novels. I don't really talk about them because it was before the channel, but I don't think the novels were that good. I think there were parts of them that were brilliant, but I also think there were parts of them that were, like, mediocre. I'm glad you enjoyed it, though. It's a good book for FNaF fans, you know, like...
Yeah, I think each novel was worse than the last, honestly. I really enjoyed Silver Eyes. Twisted Ones was okay, and I mean, Four Closet was alright in some parts, I just didn't like a few plot points of it.
Yeah, no, it's weird. Like, Fourth Closet, there were bits that I really liked, but only because they went in a different direction to Twisted Ones. And then, halfway through the book, it just went back on, like, doubling down on Twisted Ones with, like, the character arcs and the plot line. It just, I don't know, man. It was all over the place.
Yeah, my one big
I won't go
complaint
into detail
with the
now,
novels is... Like, Springtrap's character became... Like, Afton's character
God.
became way more ridiculous as they went on.
Yeah, they murdered Springtrap as a character. His dialogue in Twisted Ones makes me cringe so much. Because that's canon, yes. And I think that's what Scott intended for the games. It's like... It's so many opportunities to just...
Yeah, it's a shame, too, because I think the Silver Eyes version of Afton is... the best possible incarnation of him, besides, like, maybe FNaF 3. Like, I think it's amazing characterization in Silver Eyes that, like, is completely true to his character.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's... Because FNaF 3 on its own is, like, completely up to interpretation, really. And we don't have, like, dialogue from him in that game, which I think is a good thing. I think it's better that way, because... Again, I've talked to... my girlfriend Lucy's really opinionated on this as well, guys. She absolutely hates the way that a lot of the fandom has characterized William Afton as this, like, overconfident and cocky, like, mad scientist. But the thing is, that's pretty much exactly what he was in the novels, and that's where everybody's got it from. Which is, you know, could easily be canon to the games. I mean, we saw what he was like in Pizza Sim. That was kind of vague, to be honest. I don't know. I just didn't really get that, but... Anyway,
yeah, this is why I love fan...
Sorry, I was just gonna...
topic.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, but this is why I love fan games that make Afton, like, an actual intimidating villain again. Like, to take what everyone thought of his character during the early days, basically, like, say, basically, realistic serial killer in his early 20s, basically, instead of the... like, you know, huge branching family that he has and the mad scientist figure he became. I really prefer that, like, early characterization of him.
Yeah, it's weird, like... I like that Purple Guy in, like, FNaF 1 to 3 is kind of open to interpretation. Man, I don't want to start on a ramble now, but what I will say is this. Scott didn't know exactly what to do with the lore with FNaF 4. He tried too hard to make it mysterious, and... he had to fix a very messy problem, which he inadvertently made worse with Sister Location. Now, Sister Location was amazing, and I don't dislike the whole Afton family, Emily family, like, drama, but things have gotten out of hand since then. My god. Just, please. It's, yeah, I don't know. Because William Afton's kind of inconsistent as a character. I think it's because we're seeing him at lots of different points in time where he's going through different things. But there's been so many iterations of him as well that it's super complicated to think, well, you know, like, who is he? There's nothing which really contradicts itself, but I don't know, there's gaps. Anyway, but yeah, I just want to respond to chat. Creeper hacks. Henry went kind of crazy in the novels, because that's why he built a robot to kill himself, because he was, like, an expert with animatronics and stuff. Novel Henry is such a beta. Actual coward. Nothing compared to the Giga, Pizzeria Simulator cassette man. Alright. Imagine him be like an actual cassette with a voice now. That's all he is. It was just a literal cassette behind everything. Oh, man. But yeah, that story is terrifying. Like, Breaking Wheel definitely... it was one of those stories that stuck with me for it. I want to reread it now. I might skip some stories, honestly, to reread some of the later ones, because... we'll see. No, I'm not eating my mic. I'm not eating my... we're not doing any mic eating today. Alright. And yeah, exactly. It's like the tension is just like FNaF 1, where it's like you don't... like, you think you know what's gonna happen, and it happens, but it still gets you. And yeah, no. Duncan, I wouldn't call Fazbear Frights novels. Those are like short stories. I mean, technically, yes, books, novels, but like the novels are the Charlie trilogy. Like, man, the fact that people just call them the novels, I think, goes to show how much they've been kind of left behind. It's like their only purpose was to fill in lore gaps with the games, and then after that, people just kind of left them behind. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
they weren't that bad.
So well.
They did, and they had their moments.
So
I liked Carlton. And I think the reason I actually like Fourth Closet more than Twisted Ones is because Carlton wasn't in Twisted Ones. That's the real reason that it wasn't a good book, guys. It's all because of Carlton. Alright, Carlton is the greatest FNaF character. And he's cool, though. I unironically quite like him. Anyway, let's move on. We're wasting time. We're getting off topic here.
Yeah, definitely getting a bit off topic.
I want to say one more thing, though. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can see why we started to stall, because next up is, He Told Me Everything.
Oh boy, my favorite! I'm gonna create its own rank for it. Let me just make an entire, row just for this story. Hold on a second, guys. The best story. Oh my gosh. Wait, what did you call me? What's this? Wait, people can't even read that. Boom. Who am I kidding? Guys, Amis, do you want to explain this one? You can go first.
Yeah, so He Told Me Everything is a very, very weird story, and it's kind of infamous in the FNaF fandom the same way that In the Flesh is. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it's as bad as In the Flesh. I really don't think it is.
No, not that bad.
But, yeah, there's a reason why it has a bad reputation, so... This introduces something called Fazgoo, and Fazgoo shouldn't exist. Fazgoo is basically, Fazgoo is basically the epitome of the whole body swapping trope that's been going on in the Frights, like in a few stories up to this point, taken to the logical maximum. It basically absorbs its victim's organs and then transforms into the victim, and then leaves them basically a rotting pile of flesh on the floor. It sounds really scary in concept, but it's really not. The way it's described is borderline ridiculous. And yeah, that's why people don't like this story, is because Fazgoo is just the weirdest and most absurd thing to be introduced into this franchise. And it really doesn't help that it reappears in another story later on, which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be honest, I don't think the story is all that bad, except for the sheer absurdity of Fazgoo. I think that Chris is a decent protagonist, nothing like crazy well-developed like someone like Delilah, for example, but an all-around pretty solid protagonist. Pretty relatable teenager, I think. Pretty relatable, like, nice guy, smart kid, basically. It's easy to feel bad for him, I think. And the other thing is that I do find it pretty interesting that this is one of the first stories. The only other one I can think of is, like, Lonely Freddy. Where this actually happens on a larger scale than just happening to the protagonist, it's implied. This happens to, like, probably about 20 high school kids, and the man behind, like, all of this is Dr. Whittle, and we never figure out his motivations, which I think he's actually a far scarier villain than the Fazgoo, and it's kind of a shame that he was never better developed, because I think he is actually, like, a pretty creepy villain.
Yep, lots and lots of wasted potential here. Like, the protagonist I thought was just okay. Like, maybe not as good as Oswald or Sarah, but maybe Millie. I don't know. Personally, I don't know. He was okay. And, like, his motivation and stuff, like, join this, like, science club and be part of the team makes sense, but literally nothing else past that makes sense. There's never any explanation or connection to any other stories. Other than one, which we'll get into, about, like everything else going on here. Like, who is, like, this, science teacher using Fazgoo for this weird, like, experiment that's disguised as this, class experiment where he gets a class of children, like teenagers, to pull out one of their teeth using, like, what's it called? Not a wrench. The freaking tweezers. He gets everyone to pull out a tooth with tweezers, although the main character cheats by taking a baby tooth, which he, like, kept for some reason. It's kind of weird. And So the process takes longer for him. It's weird. And they stay behind with the Fazbear attached to their fingers with the tooth in it. It's like this weird pink gelatinous substance. It's just weird and gross. And yeah, it just sucks out all of their organs and stuff and replaces them. And then, like, what's left of the original is, like, you know, put away. And each one of these, like, fake imposter Fazbear clones of all these high school students is like, he told me everything. They all say that. And it's like, this is like a thing that's seeping through society. There could be dozens, hundreds of like imposters among us, all right? This is a pandemic. You know, and it's just never addressed. It's not, you know, like, this sounds like this could be an entire world-building thing for an original, like, series or like a FNaF spin-off, but it's like, it's not part of the Stitch Race story. It's never, you know, explained, like, you know, what Fazbear even is, how it does what it does, why it was made, who the science teacher is he made of Fazbear? Is this, like, I don't know, like, I can understand how this extends from, you know, capturing the remnant of children, because that's kind of what Sister Location was about, but it's, like, so far into absurd territory that it's like, how could this happen? How could so many people have their bodies snatched this way without anyone noticing? And it's honestly terrifying, because it's like, now there's all these, like, fake people, like children. There have been, like, dozens, maybe just a single dozen, maybe 20, just the one class even, like, teenagers just killed, missing forever, and no one would know. But, like, I don't know, I think I'm still giving it an F, just because, like, even though the few good things about it, like the pacing and the, like, protagonist motives and stuff, can't make up for this story for me. It's just, I don't know,
yeah,
it's like,
I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head, because
I think I said
here's the
everything,
thing,
yeah.
like, there's a lot of things that I can forgive about this story. I think that the underlying concept of it, like the like you said, the children going missing, there being all these, like, fake people out there, I think it's very creepy in concept, but it's so over the top that it lessens it quite a bit. It's kind of like in the flesh, where it's, like, so incredibly over the top that it just kind of isn't really scary anymore.
Yeah.
And then, like, the biggest problem, though, is it's not even, like, the lack of connection to FNaF or any parallels or anything like that, although that is also a problem. It's the fact that it never, ever connects to anything. The only thing it connects to is the puppet carver, and that's not connected to anything either. So
we'll talk
it just
about
kind of
that.
exists. It just kind of exists out here in, like, this deep, dark corner of the FNaF canon.
Right?
There's no reason for it to exist. Like, there's no parallels to anything. It doesn't connect to anything. It just,
yeah, there's, like, no lore in
it.
this one, like, at all that I can think of.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
I
just
can't...
it's just wasting another story slot. Like, it really doesn't make sense. There's no
Pretty
reason for it
much.
to be
And it's
here.
like, the fact that they would establish something so big as, like, an entire class of children, potentially hundreds of people having their bodies snatched this way, and then just never bring it up, is just, like, it's just messy. Why would you have something with such huge consequences, like, be broken? And I think this is a wider problem with FNaF in, like, this day and age, is that, like, the world FNaF exists in is so inconsistent. I feel like it's not really grounded. It doesn't have to be grounded in reality, but it's not really grounded in any kind of wider identity, because it's like Fazbear Frights was the first thing that really went into exploring the outside world. It's not in a pizzeria anymore, it's not in an underground facility, it's not even in, like, a cheesy horror attraction based on the urban legends. No, it is, like, in the real world, you know, in the streets, the neighborhoods, the homes of ordinary people. But it's like, stuff like this just really throws it all off. Like, I just don't understand, like, how this is supposed to work. I mean, unless there's been references no one's noticed because they weren't written very well. It just, I don't know. Also, someone asked me to Google FNaF protagonist. I don't trust you, so I'm not showing this on stream. What is it? What do you mean? Google FNaF protagonist. This better not be Rule 34. Okay, it's not. We're good. Hopefully.
It's probably just stupid theories, I would guess.
I automatically Googled images instead of web. The internet has destroyed my brain. Why did I assume that you meant images? Oh my god. Just ignore me, guys. Ignore me. I'm crazy. Go crazy. Go stupid. Oh man, this is annoying. I'm gonna need to get some new headphones or something. I mean, these still work. Maybe I can tape them up another way, but I can't do it now. FNaFopedia Wikia came up with Mike Schmidt, you know, which Makes sense. Twice. Who is the protagonist of FNaF 3? Either Henry, Michael, or a past night guard? Hey, nice. That's the exact same thought process I had like 3 years ago.
Pretty much accurate, yeah. I think it's
got to be
Michael
one of
at
those
this point,
three.
There's still a possibility of it being Henry or like someone else. Just
it could be any. I would prefer Henry story-wise, but it could be any of them. It's an interesting
I prefer Michael
theory.
Personally.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, this story could work, but I mean, it would have to have a lot of setup around it, like in the epilogues and the other stories. Because the one other story that Fazbear appears in, which we'll get to later, it also doesn't make sense. It doesn't even connect to the other story that it appears in any way. It's just a waste of another story slot. So this wasted 2 story slots and has no reason.
And we could have got like Felix the Shark, the Scoop, You're the Band, or something that actually like is good.
Yeah, like give us Felix the Shark over He Told Me Everything or the Puppet Carver like any day.
Honestly, like even if Felix the Shark's mediocre, haven't read it, like the concept sounds decent, and it's like at least it's not Fazbear.
Yeah,
look,
I like the concept of it. I'm excited to read it.
Here's the alignment chart so far, guys. You can see the cliffs up here, breaking wheel up here, and He's Told Me Everything down here. We're now on to volume 8, and again, we'll come back to the epilogues when we are done with the main stories. And Creeper Hacks, I understand now, it didn't come up for me. Gumdrop Angel is next.
Okay.
What do you think?
I don't like this story very much. I thought I was going to like it when I first heard of it because I thought the concept was extremely scary. Like, the cover is probably the freakiest thing that I've seen in Fazbear Frights ever.
Yeah, I was like, I know someone is getting turned into candy. That's exactly what it looks like, and that's a very, like, that feels like in the universe of FNaF. Like, how exactly does that work? And then we got this. Explain it.
Yeah, so this is a weird story, and although I don't think it's as bad as He Told Me Everything, I'd kind of link it, like, along the same way in terms of it falls flat in some weird ways. So this basically follows the story of a girl named Angel. She's at a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. She meets this guy named Dominic, pretty much falls head over heels for him instantly. And she's there because her young stepsister, is basically a toddler, is having a birthday party there. And they bring out this birthday gummy on stage that basically runs and flails around, and all the children chase it down and eat it because it's made out of candy. It's a pretty weird concept. The protagonist is kind of freaked out by it, which makes sense. So anyway, the nose of the birthday gummy is given to Ophelia, which is the protagonist, Angel's stepsister. So later on, basically, they get into a fight. Angel realizes that Ophelia really wants the gumdrop nose, decides that she's going to spite her, she'll take it and eat it. So she goes to sleep, and then she wakes up a few hours later, and she's got gumdrops essentially growing all over her body. So the next phase is basically her trying everything to get rid of it. She jumps in the shower, tries to get rid of it. It doesn't go away. It keeps getting worse. It's popping up all over her skin. She's barely recognizable. So she goes back to Freddy's, and she sees the guy that she met there, Dominic. And all he does basically is take her into the back room and has her lay down in a box. So the next time she wakes up, she's on the main stage. She is the birthday gummy, and she gets chased down and is eaten by a ton of little kids. So it's literally cannibalism. And this has been going on for who knows how long, because the previous birthday gummy did the exact same thing. It's a very scary story and concept, but again, like He Told Me Everything, how is this supposed to work? It's never explained. It doesn't fit in anywhere. It's not connected to in the epilogues. It just doesn't work. Why is Freddy's doing this in the first place? How are they doing this in the first place? And what does it connect to? How long has this been going on for? There's just so many unanswered questions, and it seems to be happening on a very large scale, and yet it's never brought up again. So it just, I don't know, it doesn't really work. It just feels very, very unrealistic.
Yeah. It's a similar problem to He Told Me Everything, and like even the gumdrop itself is kind of like Fazbear. I mean, it's, you know, pink and bubbly and stuff. It's weird, but yeah, I will say, the things I liked about this story, reading it, was that Angel's struggle, it did feel like they were actually kind of high stakes. She's, like, trying to get into, like, an arts college, but her parents are, like, totally against it, insist that she has to go do some, like, you know, I don't know, it's like, she wants to do, like, an art subject, but they want her to do, like, a proper subject, you know, it's like a, you know, it's a pretty relatable thing for a lot of kids. I'm glad to say my parents have been pretty supportive, but, like, that, you know, if like, her whole life was, you know, like, in, their hands, and, like, you know, the tension, the conflicts between them, like, yeah, it's pretty anxiety-inducing, and,
if there's one positive thing that I will say about the story, it's that Angel is actually quite a well-developed protagonist.
Yeah.
Pretty much its only saving grace, but she is actually a pretty well-written, pretty relatable protagonist. I'd say on the level as Oswald and Sarah, for sure.
I would agree. Like, she's got a realistic struggle, realistic reactions. I will say her eating the gummy was a bit of a contrived plot point for the sake of having her become the next Gumdrop Angel. But I can let it slide because plot, I guess. And, you know, like, again, her, like, relationship with Dominic as well, her dad telling her to get off the phone, stop talking to strangers, like, you know, I felt really bad for her. It was really sad, like, because she has so much to lose, and she does. But, like, I don't understand, again, there's a difference between having a good mystery and just being, like, too random and mysterious. Something that I don't like about a lot of the stories that are rated lower is that, you know, they don't even tease anything. You know, if we go back to the original, like, FNaF mysteries, if we go back to, like, Sister Location, right, or even, you know, before that, like, we get a lot of information, and we can see how some things piece together and connect, like, you know, the scooper, and the way it's used in the animatronics is, you know, connected to and elaborated further in Pizza Sim with, like, the blueprint, and it's, like, you know, when you know about, like, Remnant and stuff, you know, there's pieces that you can put together, and while there's gaps, you know, in the story, like, with, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like, before the Sister Location custom night release, right, it's like I guess that's not really a good choice, but if you're thinking, like, I don't know, like, predictions of, like, FNaF 3. Before FNaF 3 release, it's like, okay, well, like, you know, what is, you know, the hybrid animatronic? What is the salvage? I don't know, it's like, Scott showed us in the trailer, Springtrap, but he, you know, didn't tell us anything. And it's that show not tell, which is really important in storytelling anyways. This story is just a bit weird. It doesn't tell anything, and it doesn't show enough. I like the, you know, cyclical kind of structure of, like, it starts with a Gumdrop Angel, and then a character who's literally called Angel becomes it at the end, and it's like, okay, nice horror, I've seen that trope before, it works. But, like, why does Dominic react the way he does? It's like he knows exactly what's going on with her, and literally puts her in a coffin to die, so she can be served up to the next set of children the next day, and it's like, you're like, who is this guy? How, he's not just this ordinary guy. He's in on this, like, who is he? And, like, how does this apply to the wider scheme? And again, the world building here is just very messy. And the concept, again, is just kind of dumb. I'm gonna put it an E. Maybe a D.
That's about where I would rate. Yeah, like, the impression I got is, like, Dominic is this guy who's being, like, manipulated or pressured by a higher up in the company, probably, to do all this. We just don't know why this is a thing that's happening at Freddy's in the first place, and that never really gets answered again.
William Afton.
It's too ambiguous. It leaves too many answers. The concept's freaky, but it's way over the top.
Yeah, again, it did scare me, but it is on the goofy side. It's not like In the Flesh, where it's so bad that I can't take it seriously at all. But, like, I'm tempted to put it in E, but it's like, I don't want to just put something in E just because E's been emptied this whole time, guys. The thing is, there does seem to be a fine line between the mediocre stories and the absolute garbage stories. I don't know if any stories are going to go in the E category. We'll see. But yeah, I think, last thing I was going to say about this is, like, when Sister Location first came out, the impression I got was this. William Afton's the only person who knows about, you know, Remnant and, you know, putting, you know, the souls of the dead into animatronics to, you know, give them life and, like, you know, immortality and all that. It's all secret experiments underground. You know, we've seen most of the facilities automated. There are barely any other employees because, you know, there's probably loads of, like, you know, middlemen and, you know, like, proxies that, you know, Afton's working through. Probably kind of like Henry did in Pizza Sim as well, if the whole thing's not just a simulation, which is a theory we can talk about another time. But, like, the fact that Fazbear Entertainment as an entire corporation is, like, going through with all of this kind of thing, like the Fazgoo, you know, in the science experiments, the Gumdrop Angel. William Afton, I mean, he's long dead. He's he's Springtrap at this point. He's not even Springtrap anymore. Like, it's kind of unclear what his history is in the Frights universe. We can roughly assume it's similar to the games, but who else would be doing all this? Why? It doesn't make sense, and it's never addressed. I feel like this is like a secondary, like, overarching narrative that just seems completely disconnected from the Stitch Wraith stories, but also could have been like an overarching thing. I prefer the Stitch Wraith stingers, but I don't know. It's all over the place. Let's move on. Sergio's lucky day. Just also reading chat. Who even is Dominic? I can't remember. Did we say Dominic? Oh no, he's the Fazbear Entertainment employee. He's like a teenager, you know, same age as Angel. They flirt, and yeah. He's just this dude. He's just like he's literally like minimum wage, like teenage staff member, like just some frontline dude, not someone who's going to be in on any company secrets. Which doesn't make sense, man. Fair enough, DJ. Understandable. Have a nice day. Another parallel to the glitch in Help Wanted. People keep saying there's connections to Help Wanted in Frights. Where? We've got Prankster and we've got In the Flesh. There's nothing else which is, like, remotely close.
Oh, yeah, man. Those two are, like, the only, like, pretty strong parallels I can see to Help Wanted. I can maybe see one in, like, the Man in Room 1280 a little bit, but that's pretty much it.
I've heard about that, but I think that theory's a stretch. I might need to just take more time getting into it, though. Yeah. Or it could just be that they didn't put in the clues properly in Help Wanted, which seems to be the case with me, because... I mean, I don't know, man. We're deviating again. Guys. I've been streaming for almost an hour. Let's keep it moving. Alright, Sergio's Lucky Day. This story wasn't bad, wasn't amazing. I'm thinking maybe putting around B or C, because I can't remember a lot of it. Sergio just kind of goes crazy. Like, I don't quite understand his mindset, especially towards the end, but I like the theme of temptation and how we see him rise and fall from bottom to top and then back to whatever the hell the ending is. And Lucky Boy looks like a version of Balloon Boys. It's nice to see that he got, like, a story of his own, kind of. Not really. He wasn't really utilized in any way. Just kind of... He, like, gives advice to Sergio, but it's like, the way Sergio reacts, it's like he's got this weird... mind controlling effect. It's like, I don't know if there's anything paranormal going on, but he's like very, like, Sergio becomes very suggestive when listening to Lucky Boy. It's kind of a weird story, and I don't understand what the point of it was. I don't know. It has not really any lore relevance either. What do you think?
Yeah, so that's pretty much like how I described the story. Is it's middle of the pack, but I do think it's pretty unique. The only thing that could hold it back a little bit again is doesn't really feel like that much of a FNaF story, even though Lucky Boy is probably like a version of Balloon Boy. There's not much connection to Freddy's. There's not much lore relevance here. I can't really see any big parallels here, so I don't really understand what it's getting at. But in and of itself, I think it's actually a pretty cool story. It's pretty unique how we actually see it, like, the entire time we see it through Sergio's eyes and how he starts to meet his downfall, basically. You can kind of, like, if you're really paying attention, you can tell that he's slowly becoming crazy, I think, like, over the course of the entire story.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually, like, a fairly realistic and chilling portrayal of a guy going insane to the point that he'll listen to anything, basically.
The pacing on this one is good. I think it's done, like, pretty much perfectly.
Yeah, the pacing is amazing. I think Sergio's reasonably well crafted, pretty believable protagonist. Lucky Boy he's not really like an intimidating antagonist, but I don't really think he's supposed to be either. I think it's more so just the chilling effects that he has on Sergio's mental state, basically, throughout the entire story. So I think for what it is, even though it doesn't have a lot of lore relevance, I think it's actually a fairly solid story.
Fair enough. I think I liked the first half. I think I didn't like the second half as much, just because, like, the ending was too vague. I feel like this is the story where an ambiguous ending doesn't really work as well, but a lot of the stories do this. And I don't know. I think I'm gonna give this D, and Gumdrop Angel's gonna be E. I need to, like, spread this out a bit more evenly, guys. I think I'm pretty happy with everything else.
Sounds about
yeah. Right. I don't know. It's just my opinion, guys. You're welcome to completely disagree. Like, you could honestly twist Gumdrop Angel to a B and, like, Fetch to, like, a C, honestly. But This is what I think. Anyway, next story is What We Found, if we want to talk about that.
Yeah. What
Man.
we found... This is probably going to be a controversial opinion, but again, just like Gumdrop Angel, I don't really like this story very much. So we get to see Springtrap again. Cool. But kind of like Dance With Me, the main antagonist, which is Springtrap in this case, doesn't really do anything throughout the entire rest of the story. He's just kind of there. It's implied that he's a hallucination, basically, like the whole time.
It's weird. It
yeah,
is weird.
It's really weird. Like the way it ends, it's implied that he wasn't really moving around the entire time. It does seem like he was controlling the phantoms, which is nice. I think this has a decent amount of lore relevance. Actually, clears up some things about 3, how the phantoms work. All that. But I don't know. Even though it has a good amount of lore relevance, I don't really like the story all that much for what it is, because I don't think it's a great retelling of FNaF 3.
No.
It's kind of lame that Springtrap doesn't really do anything, and honestly, the entire story just had me really confused. Like, this is the only story that I had to reread almost every page at least twice to actually understand what the hell was going on. Like, I was completely lost at multiple points throughout the story, and it feels really confusing the way it's written. It just kind of meshes together, but not very well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually altering my tier list, as you will see on the stream, because I think this story had so much potential that was lost. Kind of like Dance With Me. Ballora, Springtrap, some of the most interesting characters in the entire franchise. And somehow, every appearance Springtrap has made since FNaF 3 has managed to get worse with time. Maybe not exactly, I think UCN Help Wanted were just token appearances, they were good. But, story-wise, I mean, Peter Sim, I guess, why not? But, in Frights and the newer games, it's just getting worse and worse. Because this story is, first of all, I noticed, I think there might have been some typos that made me reread it, because they referred to the location as Fazbear's Fright, but then continue to refer to it as Fazbear Frights, the title of the book series, not the location, for every single instance after that. Why? How do you make a mistake like this? But, I mean, I actually think, it would be interesting to see which authors wrote which books, because I want to say there's at least one specifically who I really like. But, the ones I remember are Andrea Wagner and Ellie Cooper. I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly. But yeah, What We Found is just there's a guy, is it Hudson in this story? Was that,
Hudson,
Room for One More? I can't remember. It was, I think Room for One More was Stanley. They're kind of similar. Yeah, Hudson's just this dude. I can't even remember most of the conflict. He has some, interpersonal issues with his parents and his co-workers or something. It just kind of feels very dry character-wise compared to a lot of other stories.
I think Hudson had a lot of potential as a protagonist, and he's decent, I guess, but
no way.
I feel like there was a lot more they could have done there. Basically, the whole story with him. So he has a lot of childhood trauma. I believe it was his stepdad, Lewis, I think, that used to beat him, basically. And that's why he has a lot of trauma from that.
That was it.
Yeah, and then I think it's revealed at the end that he actually, blocked out the memory, but he burned down the house when he was, 18, I think, and killed him.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole thematic thing. I remember now. I'd forgotten all of this. Deadass.
Yeah. The ending, I feel like, could have been executed better, and it could have salvaged this a little bit. So, at the end, Hudson just kind of climbs into an oven, gets locked in there by something, we don't know what, and then dies. His corpse is found the next morning.
Just gets burned alive,
Yeah, so, what they could have done better here, I was talking with someone about this on my main server earlier, is they could have had him torch the building, basically, like FNaF 3. Again, a complete retelling of FNaF 3.
That's what this should have been, honestly.
If he still has to die, let him go down with Springtrap, it fits with the theme of him burning down the house. It just, it all around fits, so much better than him just randomly deciding to crawl into an oven. I feel like it would have been a lot better if he torched the place. They could have salvaged that a little bit with the ending, I think.
I think one of the reasons I didn't like this as much as a lot of other stories is because it's one of those horror stories that just tries to be scary by doing a series of random things. It doesn't even properly play on any phobias. we literally have this guys working at this, well, you know what Fazbear's Fright is, the horror attraction based on the legacy of Freddy's. And it's like, they've got Springtrap chained to a wall. So they found this animatronic and he's like pinned up there as like a thing that'll spook people. And then he just kind of randomly starts creating hallucinations that freak out Hudson. And he like hears the voice of like his father and like a teacher from school is really strict and all these like traumatic memories. And then there's like these like, instead of like the phantoms, like Phantom Freddy, Phantom Foxy, we just get described with all these mouths that chase him. He even goes like crawling through vents and stuff. It just kind of doesn't go anywhere. It's one of the reasons why I thought Out of Stock was a little bit off with pacing towards the end. It just kind of like, and now we're running to A, and now to B. Jump scare, running to C. Except this is even worse, because there's no clear, this could have been so much more. This could have completely filled in William Afton in the Frights timeline, right? Because we think the man in room 1280 is William Afton. I think that's confirmed. And it's like, he's in the epilogues, but like, what about Springtrap? And I mean, don't even talk about in the flesh. If Springtrap's in universe in a VR game, like, I'm willing to just ignore that since that story was crap anyway. But like, this could have been a big way of, elaborating on FNaF 3, maybe even give us a hint of how exactly the fire happened in the games. Tons of lore, tons of kind of, character development, but all we got was some vague symbolism, and Springtrap wasn't even utilized. He doesn't speak in his own voice, he doesn't have any kind of dialogue or interactions, doesn't do anything, it's just kind of random hallucinations. Big disappointment, honestly.
I think the pacing of this one was really bad, honestly. It starts off okay, I think it's got decent build-up, and then the middle is just a very, very long, boring slog where Hudson just runs all over the building. I was only in it for that point to see the ending, and the ending was underwhelming.
It's incredibly underwhelming.
Like, this ties back to what I was talking about the possible alternate ending that this story could have had. Let's say this connects to the epilogues, right?
Yes.
Let's say Hudson burns Fazbear's Fright down, William Afton in Springtrap dies in the fire, they find him, they pry him out of the Springtrap suit, he's somehow still alive because of Andrew, they take him to the hospital, the man in room 1280 happens. That lines up perfectly. But honestly, they didn't do that for some reason. They just had this weird, like, completely disconnected ending where Hudson crawls into an oven, dies, his coworkers find him the next morning. It's like in the flesh all over almost of how that goes. And then Springtrap just, again, doesn't do anything. He's still there. Fazbear's Fright is still there. It doesn't lead anywhere. We don't even know if this is the same William Afton from the epilogues. We don't know if Springtrap is William Afton at all in this continuity.
Mike Trap. Right? Oh, like, the thing is, there's literally a mysterious fire at a Freddy's location or something, like, mentioned in the epilogues by Larson. It's part of his investigation. And they could have, like, actually tied that up with, like, FNaF 3 and, like, had this whole alternative version of events. And honestly, like, if it actually explained, that would be awesome if it led into the man in room 1280. That'd be amazing. There'd be, like, a whole new twist on Springtrap. And again, if we'd had that, this would have been even better in Volume 5 instead of in the flesh. Because something I noticed with Volume 5 of Fazbear Frights is that not only is it about, like, William Afton, it kind of follows the progression of his character, like, symbolically, in 3 stages, kind of like the novels, kind of like the games. You've got the early days where he's wearing, the spring Bonnie suit, which is what Ralpho kind of, seems like a rabbit kind of costume thing, and obviously, like, all the symbolism of, like, his family, before they all died. And then we've got, his Springtrap phase, from, like, FNaF 3, and, after he got, like, trapped and stuff, and then, like, post-Springtrap, we've got Afton. He's called Afton in Pizza Sim, kind of like he calls himself Afton in the 4th Closet, after, calling himself Springtrap in the Twisted Ones. It's all a bit weird, like, character arc-wise, but, like, I see a vague parallel there, and I just feel like it wasn't communicated very well. Because in the flesh, it's just, like, FNaF VR, I guess, or?
Yeah, I don't even know at this point. I've given up on trying to figure out in the flesh.
Fair.
But yeah,
there are better stories to look at.
I would say what we found is the story in the entire series that has the most lost potential. This could have
big
been
disappointment.
An amazing story. It could have filled in all the gaps with Springtrap's character, in Frights at least, maybe even some from the game timeline or the novels or whatever.
Honestly,
perfectly in the Man in Room 1280. The epilogues connected everything. and it just doesn't. The fact that this falls flat, I think, actually directly hurts the entire overarching series of the epilogues. While it's still very good, it could have been better.
Yeah. Because I like that Afton is only the focus for the first part, and it's like, twist, bait and switch, you know, oh, the main villain was actually Eleanor, but, you know, they still had to use him. Like, I get it, yeah, he's weak, and he's just, you know, a shell of his former self, whatever, like, you know, he's William Bloody Afton. Like, you've established a very, you know, like, important, you know, like, the character that, like, kind of started everything and caused everything and has so much potential. Use it. Use it, man. I feel like Scott is the kind of person who's too afraid to do anything particularly defined or bold with Afton or Springtrap or anything, because the fans won't like it. So instead he's keeping it as vague as possible. And the fans don't like it. You can't win. You can't win, Scott. I'm sorry. It's nothing personal. Goddamn.
Yeah.
Looking at my alignment sheet.
I don't know. The entire fact that... It's weird, because I didn't pick up on, like, any of this before today, but the entire fact that this story exists as it is just depressing now.
Yeah, it is. You have to see, you know, the upsides to everything, guys, but, like, this is why I'm so invested in fan content of FNaF. I think especially now, considering how the franchise has begun to kind of grow and become this sprawling mess, fan content is going to be the thing to look at in future. I know there are probably, fanfics of, like, Fazbear Frights. I knew a guy who used to do stuff like that, which wasn't really that good, but, like, I don't know, I feel like someone could write something pretty cool, or make it even into a game. Like, it'd be cool to see some fan games connected to Fazbear Fright stuff, because that's something we haven't seen yet, and FNaF fan game culture is huge. Literally, the whole GameJolt website, like, half of it is just FNaF fan games, as far as I'm aware. And, you know, the fanverse is a thing. I don't know. I don't really know how or what resources I would need to do it, but if I could, I would probably make some kind of Fazbear Frights fan game. It'd be cool, because for those of you who don't know, I do have some fairly basic software, someone who isn't really, you know, a game developer or someone who can do programming to a high level, and I have made FNaF fan games before, using this, so I could make something theoretically, but I don't know how I do it, because, like, I need to learn Blender or SFM, and that's a lot of time for something which is really just a hobby on the side. Like, it's not even like my YouTube, which is like my main thing, which has the potential to be like a side hustle. I'm so close to monetization. Guys, if you are enjoying the stream, leave a like, subscribe, and share this, please. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. If we can do it by the end of the month, I'll do not 1, but 2 subscriber specials. We're not that far into the stream yet. I'm going to leave this shameless self-plugging for a little bit later. Let's move on. So, we're on to volume 9 now. Puppet Carver.
Yeah. Real quick, though, if you do decide to work on that Frights game at any point, let me know, bounce some ideas off me. I actually know a decent amount of SFM, and I know a lot of people who are, like, way better at it than I am, so we can actually make that happen at some point if you want to pick that up as a bit of a hobby.
I'm aware that there is a fan game being made called Five Nights at Ambens, so maybe we can talk to the team after that project's done, or maybe, I don't know, if I'm doing the main, I guess, design and coding in FNaF Engine, all I would need is, like, someone to do renders. We'll talk. Alright. Not confirming anything, guys, but man, the ideas. Anything's possible.
Love the idea. Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Okay. So, Puppet Carver. This is, we can talk about Fazbear now. I'm gonna let you take this one. This is, where would I rank this?
Okay, so Puppet Carver is a story. So Book 9 came out. I hadn't read it yet, and I saw a lot of people talking about the stories in it, and everyone rated Puppet Carver as being absolutely terrible. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna experience this for myself, because from what I've heard of it, it actually sounds pretty cool.
Open-mindedness, guys.
Yeah, and here's the thing: the cover of this book is clickbait. The puppets never show up in the actual story. They appear in a in-universe book that one of the side characters is writing. I don't know why they're even there. Probably to mask the fact that the antagonist of the story is, once again, Fazgoo. And guess what? It's even worse than its last appearance. This time, it doesn't take part in any large-scale freaky thing. It just exists because it can. It literally chases a man across the street, like, with a bunch of people around, from what I can tell, chases him into a building, just kind of touches him on the forehead, I guess, and then the next thing we see is he's suddenly Mr. Nice Guy after being a pretty big jerk the entire rest of the story.
I think it was one of those times where it's a horror story, so conveniently the streets are empty. Like, you know, like a cheesy horror movie.
It's weird. There's like a lot of plot convenience in there, but again, the Fazgoo kind of shows up out of nowhere, even more so than in He Told Me Everything, because it felt like in that story there was at least some build up to it. It just kind of comes out of nowhere halfway through the story and just is kind of there. So the protagonist, Jack, like I said, is a pretty big jerk, and after the Fazgoo reaches him, then he suddenly becomes a much nicer person.
Like, his personality shifts. Like Ebenezer Scrooge, but even more, like, just magical and weird.
Yeah, he becomes a pretty nice guy. He's actually, like, a good boss, good husband, all that, good father. Yeah. So, it's weird. He does, like, a complete 180, and there's kind of two interpretations here. Interpretation number one is that, because earlier in the story, he basically got trapped in some kind of weird machine that, it's implied that the Fazgoo came out of, which was the title or puppet carver. It's like a machine thing. So he basically got stuck in, like, almost a wood chipper type device.
Yes. Yes, wood chipper.
And interpretation one, which is the lighter interpretation, is that he had a near-death experience with it, and then it's like, you know what, like, it's, you know, second chance, it's time to lighten up a bit. So, in light of him getting a second chance, he decides to better himself as a person. But it's Fazbear Frights, and Fazgoo is involved, so I don't think that's what's going on. I think what is pretty heavily implied in what is a very common theory is that he died in the puppet carver machine because there's no way he could have gotten out logically. He closes his eyes, he opens it, the machine is shut off. No one could have shut it off. There's no way it got turned off. It doesn't make sense. So, what I believe happened is that he died in the puppet carver machine, which is where the Fazgoo is conveniently, and then the nice Jack that we see through the rest of the story is the Fazgoo as him. And at the end, the Fazgoo that comes after him is actually Jack. Yeah, that's right. So he basically body swapped with Fazgoo. So it takes body swapping and Fazgoo and puts them together and then doubles it.
It's very weird.
It's so messy and it's so convoluted. And here's the other thing. I was rooting for the Fazgoo this entire story.
He was rooting for the Fazgoo.
Is such an a-hole that the Fazgoo is a better person than him.
Yeah. My God.
Oh my God.
I think I need to go on, finish what you're saying. So I didn't want to interrupt. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, that's fine. I think I might have cut out a little bit. But yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, it's very convoluted. It's very complicated. It's extremely weird. It's all over the place. It's just a worse version of He Told Me Everything. And I feel like this story could have been a lot better if they went a completely different direction and, say, focused on the puppets that the puppet carver machine was created to make in the first place. That's where the first half of the story seemed to be going, and then bam, Fazbear. So,
all right.
Yeah.
This story was one that actually stuck in my mind. I don't know why, but my memory of this one's pretty clear. So I'm just going to contextualize it a bit, okay? The story starts, actually, from the perspective of a few, youngsters, like, teenagers, young adults, who work at this kind of dead-end, like, pizzeria, which is on the verge of closing, and their, boss, their manager, is like this, 40-year-old guy who's just an absolute jerk. He's just completely cold and rude and stubborn and, selfish. And I thought that the protagonist of this story was going to be, like, one of the, teenagers the perspective was from, which is why it was really weird how it kind of mentioned Jack in the blurb and it kind of switched to his perspective primarily later on. That felt a bit kind of, like, I don't know, disjointed, like, it wasn't planned properly. Yeah. And then, so one of them's writing a story, and in the story, it's basically a metaphor for what's going on with the puppet carver machine, and that's where the dolls on the front are from. It's very weird, didn't really need to be included. It's just kind of needless parallels, I guess. And then there's another guy who has made the puppet carver machine, okay? The puppet carver isn't connected to Fazbear Entertainment. It's not from Fazbear Entertainment. Maybe the parts are from Fazbear Entertainment. But this guy has built this machine of his own to cheaply produce mascot characters for the establishment, because the animatronics are expensive to run, and they're getting broken down. One of the very few things that I almost liked about this story was that Ned Bear from the Mediocre Melodies actually makes a cameo, or at least a character matching his description. It's like a bear character.
And Patch, too.
Yeah, and Pigpatch as well, I forgot about that, yeah. But, Ned Bear and Pigpatch actually make a cameo in this story. And again, Mediocre Melodies, dude, they could have their own game. You could do a single Fright story on, like, them. Wasted potential, but, like, they weren't even the focus. That was just a throwaway thing, which was just thrown in there just because they could, I guess. But, like, man, I don't know. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I actually unironically like the Mediocre Melodies. I get that they're deliberately very goofy and less scary, but I still think you can do something with that. But yeah, no. Regardless, main story is, you know, Jack accidentally goes into the machine, just like a wood chipper. It's got serrated metal on the inside. It cuts up slabs of wood, like, you know, tree logs, into these puppets. And yeah, Fazgoo is just there for some reason, and a Fazgoo version of him somehow comes out of the machine, and he's just completely changed. And it's weird. It's just very weird, because also then, obviously, Fazgoo chases him down and touches him on the head, and it's like the good and the bad side, because the Fazgoo clone that comes out, the Jack clone, as I'll call him, is completely positive and energetic and the opposite of his previous self. He's going to make up to his family, and he has, like, a gambling problem, I think, and some issues with his wife, and he's going to make up to the people he, like, just fired at his pizzeria, and he, like, yeah, it completely changes. But also, there's another Fazgoo entity of the original Jack, which, as you said, is, like, has all of the agony and the negative emotions that he had before that chases him down. It's very strange. And then there's actually confirmation at the end that that went badly, though he didn't just, you know, have a near-death experience, because one of the employees goes to empty the puppet carver, and there's just loads of human flesh in, like, the tray underneath. Instead of the usual wood chippings, there's just, like, a weird, like, you know, fleshy substance. I think it might be a mix of Fazgoo and, like, just actual, like grounded up human meat. It's really gross. And he just shrugs and just bins it, and he's like, well, okay, no time to ask where this came from. It just, I don't know, it's a very weird story. Doesn't really go anywhere. Not enough is explained. It's like, things happen, but there's no rhyme or reason why, and the artificial nature of Jack's character, I'm not even going to call it an arc or a development, his shift is just never really addressed. And it's really weird that Fazgoo came up twice. If Fazgoo came up once, it's like, okay, it's this throwaway story. For all we know, it isn't even canon. It doesn't matter. We can ignore it, like in the flesh. But it came up again, and you wouldn't even know what was going on unless you'd read He Told Me Everything. Although I imagine, you know, everyone who's gotten this far has read all of Frights. So it's like, why would they bring up Fazgoo twice and not have it be important and central to the plot? And just the poor quality of these stories, on top of the absurdity and the, you know, lack of information on Fazgoo. Fazgoo could be okay, maybe, if it was, like, elaborated properly and, like, you know, had a reason to exist and a person with a reason and a motive to create and everything, but these stories are shit tier, honestly. Like, I think the Puppet Carver might be the worst Fazbear Frights story, the more I think about it. It might be the worst. Thinking
I would
about
actually
everything.
agree. I hate this story as much, if not more, than In the Flesh. I think it's just all around terrible. Really, it doesn't have any reason to exist. Like I said, I can forgive a lot of the problems with He Told Me Everything, because I think it does have, like, a few, like, minor saving graces that pop up every now and then. But the Puppet Carver, even though it started fairly well, it's absolutely wrecked by the second half, and it has pretty much no redeeming qualities. It's just, I actually might move
everything in F up to E, just so the Puppet Carver has its own slot. Or I might create something below F. Would that be too harsh? Am I being too harsh here, guys? I feel like I'm being quite generous, honestly, but this story.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because you're right. He Told Me Everything is definitely better than this, so I can't put it in the same category. Maybe do this. He Told Me Everything in E. I'll keep In the Flesh in F.
Okay.
I feel like the thing that separates E from F is that F has no redeeming qualities. In the Flesh, like,
I can't think of many.
Yeah, but whereas with He Told Me Everything, you can kind of say, well, you know, protagonist was well written, pacing was okay, like some of the basic stuff. And what we found, you know, early half maybe wasn't so bad, but yeah, there's just no redeeming these stories. Like, I will happily declare these non-canon, honestly, because thankfully, and I think this is actually a good thing, the Fazbear doesn't connect to anything. It's never seen, referenced, mentioned, or used in the epilogues, or the connected stories whatsoever. It's just those two. So maybe they're just somehow not canon, you know? Who said... I mean, we would assume these stories are all in one universe. But, like... as logical as that assumption is, I've been talking about this off camera. Ambience has a theory that the stories that aren't explicitly connected to the epilogues aren't in the Stitch Wraith timeline. And I've even heard some people suggest that some of these stories might even be in the same timeline as the games or the novels. And I have no idea how that would work. But, it's something I'm going to have to think about. Gregory is Fazbear. Sorry, Creeper, I do see your messages. I'm just not catching up. But yeah. DJ, sadly, no. It's not about an animal band. It just features them, like, briefly. They're at the start, and they get replaced by the puppets. I think. I don't know. But yeah, no. I've read your message. Honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if Fazbear was somehow involved in Security Breach.
I swear, man, that's going to be MatPat's next theory. I guarantee
He's going to be like, Gregory is Sans, who is also Ness, who is made of Fazbear, who time-traveled from the Star Wars galaxy to save Spider-Man from the Terminator. I don't fucking know. Like, Sonic and Mario will be in there somewhere, alright? He'll find a way.
That's actually a pretty good MatPat impression.
Hello, everyone, and... oh, no, what was it? Hello, Internet, and welcome to Game Theory. He's got a pretty generic, like... I don't even know which part of America that is, like, northwestern accent? I don't know. I can do
yeah,
that,
I guess.
I don't know which part. Is it Ohio he's from? Somewhere around there, I think. My US geography's not the best, I will be honest.
Yeah, sounds about right. Mine isn't either, and I live here, so... it's...
Wait, you're in Ohio? Like, which...
No, not Ohio, just US.
Yeah. No, wait, yeah, no, you're in, like, the... I guess, west or east, because it's, like... It is further
south,
west.
Actually.
Well, south, okay, but it's, like, so far west it becomes east, because then that's... Because you're 6 hours... Okay, you're actually... Yeah, whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah, Central Time, so...
I know what time zone you're in, so, like, yeah. No, it's not that far west, actually. Or east. Bruh. Fazbear will be in FNaF 69 confirmed. Super Soul, nice to see you, boy. Yeah, honestly, like... I think, I think you gotta be able to critique things like this, guys. Just a quick note, like, I remember, like, someone on my server saying after Security Breach how he was so, like, just disappointed with everything that, like, he just ditched the FNaF fandom just immediately. Like, say what you will, he was overacting, whatever, like... He said that there were only a few members of the FNaF fandom and creators such as myself that he was still interested in because we were willing to criticize it. And, like, I think there is something in that. Like, the things you love the most, you know the most, and you can see the flaws in as well. As a hardcore FNaF fan, it's kind of like the joke of Star Wars fans hating Star Wars more than anyone else. It's like, well, yeah, there is so much to criticize, and, like, you know... Whatever your opinion on the matter, like, I don't think any of this should ruin the whole thing. Like, I hate Security Breach, I hate these stories, I'm not gonna let them ruin it for me. I can quite happily ignore them, or just ignore, you know, the parts I dislike, and that's fine.
Yeah.
There was a point
I think the magic of FNaF will, I think the magic of FNaF will never quite be ruined by, like, any few things. I think it's always gonna kind of be there's just ups and downs for it.
The thing is, right, guys, I think for us to expect anything, FNaF or otherwise, to go smoothly, so perfectly for so long is a bit of a fallacy. I mean, me personally, like, I had not even considered remotely ditching FNaF in any capacity until Security Breach released, because even the stuff I didn't like that came before was just kind of like, you know, something I could ignore, something that, you know, like, it, you know, everyone has different opinions on, like, different things as well, but, like, the franchise can't just keep doing the same thing forever. It has to evolve, it has to try new things, and inevitably there will be pitfalls, it will stumble, it will trip over, but, you know, the important thing is that it picks itself up and keeps moving. And I think FNaF is so community-driven and was established to be very community-driven in the early days because of how Scott responded and treated the fan base. It's going to be immortalized at the bare minimum, I think the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative and the Fan Games are going to immortalize FNaF no matter what happens next. And honestly, like, give it time. We might get some really good content again that starts ignoring a lot of the middle, like, you know, midlife crisis stuff. It just goes back to the original games and takes them in a new direction. That's what Pop Goes Evergreen seems to be doing, for example. But yeah, man, like, Security Breach being a mainline game just kind of, like, killed my enthusiasm for the franchise a bit. But, you know, it's fine. Alright. Everyone relax. It happens. And, you know, it's not all bad. There are plenty of things to enjoy about Security Breach. I mean, honestly, if we're going to talk about it objectively, the only thing that I will not stand for is the Afton ending. You can go wild and everything else.
Yeah.
I watch Astral Spiff. That guy's been taking me through it.
Even the glitches, so like I've been modding for DJ Sturf's chat for a little while, so I've been like tuning into a lot of his streams. That guy is so much fun speedrunning the game and like exploiting all the glitches, and people are so much fun watching it. Like even the glitches almost add to the experience at a certain point. I honestly say, and I mean no offense, like you're allowed to enjoy Security Breach, guys, but it's so bad that it's good. It's like Hello Neighbor. It's such a broken game that the fun is in breaking it further and like pushing the boundaries. And you know, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think there's good in the bad. It's a yin-yang kind of thing. Yeah. It's really cool, honestly. It's really cool. Astral Spiff has been doing amazing content on this. I love the way he's managed to break things, you know, the whole Gigamonty meme. That is, like, my favorite thing about Security Breach, is probably Gigamonty. But also stuff like speedrunning as well, you know, which is, like, you know, become prominent with this because, you know, speedrunners love glitchy games. Just a whole bunch of things like that, honestly. You don't have to take it seriously. I mean, honestly, FNaF is really dumb, even if a lot of the original stuff is really dumb in some ways. It's not for everybody. And yeah, yes, Duncan. Honestly, Creeper, the FNaF lore is such a large and complicated thing, I just consider it completely open to interpretation. I think there's a lot of ways you could twist it to be, you know, in a different universe or whatever, like, whatever story you enjoy. Anyways, Jump for Tickets is the next story. Finally, some good fucking writing. This story is goated. This story is brilliant. Yeah, basically, I do like Jump for Tickets. I don't think it's incredible or anything, but I think it's actually a very well-written story, and probably the scariest story we've had since The Breaking Wheel, I think, in all honesty. I think there's some pretty creepy stuff here. If you read this and you're claustrophobic, it'll freak you out. Oh, yeah, it will. This story, guys, basically, it's another trope which we've seen before, which was one from Lonely Freddy, kind of, but done better. There's, a young teenager who is kind of jealous, if I'm remembering correctly, he's like jealous of his younger brother winning the, this like springboard game where you get tickets and stuff because it's like, built in a way where it, bounces more with lighter people, so, he's at a disadvantage as someone who's a bit of like a young teenager rather than a small child like his brother. He's at a disadvantage playing this game. So he wants to sneak into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza at night. This is in like an open operating Freddy's location. He wants to sneak in and rig the machine because he's actually learning, you know, engineering and some technical skills. He has like an uncle with like a load of cars in his garage. He can borrow stuff from him without seeming suspicious. It's great. Yeah. I forget the protagonist's name. His name's Michael? No, the uncle's name is Michael.
Oh, right, yeah, of course. Another Michael. Yeah, what's the protagonist's name? I forget.
The protagonist's name is Colton, and I think it's his... Colton, yeah, it's his cousin, Aiden, that he's...
Colton and Aiden, yes.
Break the game for, not his brother.
That was it, sorry, his cousin. I don't remember any of the details, I just remember the main story beats. Thanks for the refresher. So, Colton... Honestly, like him as a protagonist. I feel like with Oswald, Sarah, he's, you know... got believable motives, and you know you can accommodate for a little bit of exaggeration because he's younger, you know, and it's like he's not like a little child, he's a teenager, but like he has a solid motivation of logical means. Even the fact that he successfully breaks into a Freddy's without being noticed is believable just because of like the way it's paced and written. I mean, if I don't imagine Freddy's is very high-tech security, we know that.
Yeah, I think he's a very like actually believable 14-year-old protagonist, basically. You can kind of understand his motives, like, he's flawed, but it makes sense because it lines up with that age, you know?
Yeah, it does. I
yeah,
think we've
I think it
all
makes a lot of
done
sense.
things we regret as kids.
Yeah,
14-year-old me was a flawed individual.
Yeah, and you know, like even though he's flawed and he tends to like exaggerate and dramatize things a little bit, it never gets to a point where it's overbearing. He's not like completely unlikable. He's a little whiny sometimes, but not that bad.
Exactly. He's not like obsessing over this. He just, you know, sees a problem personally and sees a fix. You know?
Yep.
Even though it's technically illegal what he's doing, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, he's not a complete idiot either. Like he does have a certain amount of skills. He's somewhat competent.
He actually has a very thorough plan before he goes through with it. Yeah.
Yeah, makes a plan, successfully breaks into Freddy's. When he sees Coils later on, his first response is to lock himself away, which, even though in hindsight ends up being a dumb move, is a pretty understandable response at the time.
Well, this is the next bit of the story. I was just gonna recap.
Here we
go. He breaks into Freddy's. He uses like this tall window near the bathrooms, and you know it's overlooked. Again, there's no one there. You know. Going back to FNaF 1, the security at Freddy's is probably pretty cheap, like everything else there. And, yeah, he sneaks in, he goes to rig the machine, he has to go and crawl under, he has to get into this crawl space, and he hides from this, like, not even, like, necessarily an animatronic attraction, but this character called Coils, which kind of bears similarity to the puppet. He's basically, like, a puppet, but, I've seen fan art, I think it was described as having, like, a yellow and green striped like party hat, he's like Ennard.
He's like a clown, basically.
I'm imagining like a puppet-like character based on Ennard's mask. Imagine that. Kind of green and gold color scheme. So like, and he has like, you know, like coils for like arms, like, you know, like springs as well. And legs, I think. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, he's this puppet character, maybe a security feature, like security puppet, I think that might be the implication. And, he kind of reaches out and tries to grab Colton, and Colton thinks he's, like, attacking him, so he, like, goes underneath the, like, ticket machine, and he starts meddling with it, but then he realizes he's trapped inside, and you know what's gonna happen. Like, I saw the ending coming a mile away, but it's still really creepy and spooky just because of the, like, implications and the fact that it's, like, again, behind closed doors, a very FNaF feel. He's still stuck in there, and no one sees or hears him, even after the kids go back on and start jumping on the machine, which has now been tweaked. So it's not bouncing as much with the lighter weights. It would actually bounce with the heavier weight, but, yeah, it also breaks, and they shut it down. It's out of order for a little bit, and that's where the story ends, and, you know, poor Colton definitely got squished under there.
Yeah, he basically got crushed to death under there. And Coils is a very interesting character also because of the reveal that, once again, he's technically a friendly antagonist. He never directly tried to hurt Colton. In fact, it's actually implied that he was trying to help him by dragging him out of the ticket machine. Coils' motivations are unknown. Maybe he's possessed by a friendly spirit. Maybe he's a security measure made by Freddy's to keep children out of there. But one of the most interesting things to me is that at the very end of the story, after Colton gets crushed and everything, Colton's cousin, Aiden, walks up to Coils.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
And Coils hugs him. So it's implied that Colton may have actually possessed Coils and was trying to make things right with his cousin at the end of the story.
That is so cool.
It's actually, considering the protagonist dies pretty brutally, it's actually a pretty hopeful ending, almost.
It's a very wholesome one, honestly. Like, that's pretty positive. I think I might give this a B ranking. I'm thinking. I like the character. Yeah. I think his flaws are believable. Everything's balanced quite nicely. The pacing's good. I like Coils as a character. It's not like Fetch or Ella. It's like, you know, they're not like an antagonist and it's something different and unique, but like, you know, pretty interesting concept. The concept of the bouncing, like, ticket machine thing is cool. I mean, it's a real attraction, you know. All these kind of things exist. Well, not all these kind of things. Just the pizzeria things, you know what I mean. The title as well, the foreshadowing. There's not much I don't like about this. Maybe they could have done a bit more with Coils. You know, maybe, I don't know. They could have gone deep with the character, but, like, I think it's pretty good. I might even give this an A. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it wasn't very scary.
Oh, yeah. The only thing that, like, fails here, I think, is, pretty small lore relevance. Not, like, a ton of parallels I can see. You can maybe turn it into, like, a security puppet parallel a little bit, and that kind of makes sense. But that's really
I think that's just, like, a vague general reference, though. Not, like, an actual, oh, this could mean that X thing happened in the games, you know, unlike...
Yeah, it doesn't really tell us anything. It's just a little, like, reference parallel type thing. But yeah, I mean, it's good horror. It plays off of a specific phobia. I know, like, anyone who's claustrophobic, thankfully I'm not, but anyone who's claustrophobic will absolutely be scared out of their wits reading this.
What?
It's got a nice plot twist at the end with Close, like, actually being a friendly character. You know, believable protagonist, good foreshadowing, like, just all around, like, I think it's actually quite a solid story, for sure.
I'm actually going to give us an A just because you pointed out that it played on a particular phobia, and I think that makes for good horror. I
think it does.
I don't think I have claustrophobia. I do get anxious in small spaces, but not to a very high level. But, like, if I was more claustrophobic, I'd definitely put it in A for the horror. So, yeah, I'm going to give that an A ranking. It definitely wasn't exemplary, but especially for the later books. This story was solid. Really enjoyed it. And actually, we might have a story that will outdo it. I know you're very fond of Pizza Kit.
My favorite Fazbear Frights story of all time is Pizza Kit. Yep.
Ooh, alright. Explain to us why, alright?
I love this story. This is in my eyes, okay, I will admit it's not better than 1:35 a.m. Objectively, I cannot say that this is better than 1:35 a.m. It might not be better than Bet, which you rank pretty high, but this is my favorite story. This is just amazing. This is huge nausea fuel the entire way through, and it seems like it might end up being one of those stories that is pretty over the top. You know, it seemed like that's where it was leading. There is so much nausea fuel. This is the only story that actually made me feel sick to my stomach after I finished reading it.
Yeah.
I legit could not eat breakfast for several hours.
I am so glad that I read this after eating and not before, because, my god, it's just... It's what In the Flesh, I think, was trying to be and utterly failed. And, you know, personally, I don't like gore. I don't like, you know, disgusting or creepy things for the sake. I think there needs to be a purpose, but I think this one toys with fear, psychological horror, and specifically nausea because of the thematic connection to pizza and food and, you know, ingestion and all that kind of thing very well. So it works.
And again, like, not a huge one, but it plays on a kind of specific type of phobia. I think everyone has kind of worried that something disgusting might be hiding in their food, you know?
And, like, be in their body. That's a, you know, gross thing. Yeah.
It's a very creepy concept that I think a lot of people have been afraid of before. So yeah, this is a story that seemed like it was laying heavy on the gore, heavy on the nausea. It seemed like it was going to be over the top. But here's the amazing thing. It goes just to the top without going over it, I think. And it does this in a way that got quite a few people to hate the story, but I think this is what solidifies it as one of the best. So, toward the end of the story, after all this build-up, all this nausea fuel, I just realized that we haven't really talked, like, much about what the story actually is, so I'll probably
I can do a summary if you want, or you can... I think I remember all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do a summary, like, just in a minute. But yeah, so, the ending, it starts off with Peyton, that's the protagonist's name, going into the bathroom and looking in the mirror, and feeling something coming up out of her throat, and then she looks in the mirror, and a hand of, like, the hand of her friend Marley, who she thought, like, bits of her were in the pizza, basically. We'll get to that when we get to the summary. But a hand, basically, Marley's hand starts coming out of her throat, and then there's all this, like, amazing gore, basically, where the chewed up version of Marley is trying to escape out from inside of Peyton, essentially, and so much pressure builds up that her eyes are thrown out of her head and thrown onto the bathroom mirror. And I'm like, okay, this is terrifying, but it seems like it's going to be really over the top. So Peyton basically dies in this way where her eyes shoot out of her body, like Marley's basically crawling out of her from every single orifice. It's extremely gory. It's extremely nauseating. And then Peyton wakes up, and it reveals that it was all a nightmare. This is what keeps it from going over the top to me, is because this is Peyton's fears, basically. This is her worst nightmare, essentially. Her paranoia reaching its logical extreme, and it actually plays into the real ending. Yeah. So, after she wakes up, Peyton hears a knock on the door. Hold on. No, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So Peyton goes out and basically vomits the entirety of what she ate for lunch out into the bushes. Then she goes back in her house, and she hears knocking on the door, and she thinks it is after she basically puked up what she thinks is the remains of Marley, she thinks that it's coming for her, just like in her nightmare.
Yeah.
So she climbs out the window onto her roof, and then we switch to Marley's perspective. That's the last we see of Peyton. Marley is standing out there, and it's revealed in this moment that she is alive and well. The entire thing, like that we'll get to in the summary in just a minute, was a prank, essentially, that she pulled on Peyton. Pretty mean-spirited, but it was a prank. Yeah. So she's given up, basically. She was just hiding out in the factory for a little while, the Freddy Fazbear's factory, and she's coming to tell Peyton, basically, that it was all just a joke. And then Peyton falls beside her dead with her neck cracked. She fell off the roof, basically, out of fear. She essentially almost died of fright. Like, her fright caused her to fall off of the roof, basically, and just go completely limp.
Yeah.
And then she hits the ground and dies.
It's crazy.
Again, this is a story that at first seemed so over the top and so nauseating that it was going to be In the Flesh Part 2. But then we get to the ending, where it's revealed that all of this could have actually happened. This is all Peyton's paranoia, and nothing supernatural was actually happening here, but she still dies. That's very real. She just doesn't die in the way that a lot of people were expecting, but her paranoia and the prank going wrong actually does end up getting her killed, and it's a extremely disturbing story. Not only is it nauseating, like, and just so much gore all the way through, but it somehow doesn't go over the top. It has just the right amount, and then the ending makes it so much better on a second read through. And like it's just amazing that like this story that had so much gore and so much over the top stuff ended up actually being one of those stories that could happen in real life.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to contextualize this for people who haven't read it, because I know not everyone will have read all of these. But, you know, obviously there were going to be spoilers. What I'm been describing is the ending. In this story, you have Peyton and Marley. Is it Marley? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Marley. Marley is a bit of a bad girl. She's a little naughty. Okay, that sounds weird out of context. What I'm saying is, she's, you know, a bit of a scoundrel, alright? And, you know, a bad influence on Peyton, according to, you know, the parents and the teachers. And it's like she wants to go exploring on this school trip to a factory owned by Fazbear Entertainment where they make the pizza. And Marley falls off some railing somewhere after she and Peyton, like, deviate from the school trip. And Peyton thinks that Marley has fallen into the vats where they make the pizza. And she's so confused and guilt-ridden with all of this that she doesn't tell anyone. She doesn't tell anyone. She's so paranoid. She doesn't know what to do. And she starts getting really paranoid. And again, it's kind of like, oh man, I'm trying to think. I mean, maybe it's not as good as 135M. I think it's on the level. It's really well-paced, well-done paranoia. Sergio's Lucky Day, but better. That's what I'm thinking of. Because she goes crazy thinking of what could be, but she doesn't know, but she thinks could be. And she has nightmares, you know. She hears this thumping, and she thinks that's Marley, her dead body being melted with the pizza cheese in the vats, and oh god. And, you know, she thinks that, when they, get the pizzas that they made on the school trip delivered, that she's eating bits of Marley mixed in her pizza, because she thinks she can see, like, skin or, like, flesh in her pizza, and she feels really sick, and it's like people notice, and she feels really weird about it. So she's super nauseous, really playing into that fear. Basically, you know, she goes home. There's a bit of drama with, like, a friend of hers who she's become distanced from now, because, you know, she's a bit of a nerd, and, you know, was a bit of a social outcast, whereas Peyton wanted to fit in, so she spent time with Marley and stuff, and now is now, like, coming to regret it because of how reckless, like, Marley was. But yeah, ultimately, she ends up going home in, like, a couple days past, like, maybe, like, one day for the whole story. She has nightmares. She sees Freddy Fazbear in her dreams, you know, with, like, the chef's, like, apron and hat and stuff, which, you know, she saw on, like, you know, posters or whatever at the factory. You know, Chef Freddy, FNaF AR skin, make it happen. Stirring, like, a pot of pizza, you know, in, like, a cauldron, like kind of some sort of like sauce or something, like whatever. And there's like a hand reaching out. And again, as Ambience described, she has these horrific nightmares. You think it's going super over the top, gore, nausea, fear, and it's like, yeah, she did eat Marley. It's like Marley was in the pizza, her like piece of her dead body, and now she's eating it, she's inside her, and then out of her own throat, like Marley's like dead hand starts to come out, but then it turns out that it's just a nightmare. And this is one of those times where it was just a dream cop-out works, because it's not just there for its own sake. It's not absurd levels of gore like in the flesh, or, you know, like whatever, or Gumdrop Angel, I don't know. It's like, it actually serves to demonstrate the fear and the, you know, insanity that Peyton's going into, bottling up all of her feelings and thoughts, and, you know, the kind of psychological terror that she's going through, because she isn't, like, telling anyone about this. She, like, doesn't tell the police, she doesn't tell the parents. There was a reason, I can't quite remember, but it's not contrived. I think Peyton is believably written to be, you know, the kind of character that sadly is involved in real life criminal prosecution sometimes. Sometimes innocent people are convicted because they seem guilty, but like everyone reacts to being accused and whatnot differently, and she's the kind of person who's like uptight and not very independent, doesn't know what to do, and this is kind of set out from the beginning. And yeah, ultimately, she thinks that the pizza she vomits up after waking up from the nightmare is like Marley coming back, like Fazbear-style. But instead, it's nothing. We cut to Marley walking up to Peyton's house thinking, ha, what a funny prank. I went and checked with my boyfriend, now I'm going to go see my best friend. And it's revealed that the whole time Marley was fine. She pulled a very devious prank on everyone, including Peyton. Whereas Peyton, meanwhile, clearly cared about Marley a lot more than Marley cared about Peyton, or at least showed that way, because she just worked herself a storm getting anxious about this. And the thing is, all of this is real. All of this could happen. The really over-the-top gore stuff happens in nightmares, which, you know, the fact that some of these stories exist proves that the human imagination can be a very twisted thing when it wants to be. Some people love horror, and, you know, for the sake of that kind of thing, and we've got some good writers here who can execute that. But the last thing of all is that Marley comes back, and Peyton is so afraid that she's gone out onto a window to try and escape whatever's knocking on her door, which could be anything. And then when she hears Marley call out, she jumps and falls, hits her neck and dies in her garden on the ground just round the back of her house. And that's where Marley finds her. And it's like, there's a real death. There's a real consequence with that psychological terror and even the over-the-top gore. But it's done in a way, you know, framed with the dream and whatnot and the paranoia, that, like, everything is so well paced and put together. And this did stick out to me when I read it, but I think, really think about it now, I have to agree that is an S-rank story. That is a highlight of Fazbear Frights. And I don't blame you picking that one as your top favourite, because I can't say I've picked the top favourite, and I think that one's a contender. I think that one is probably the number one for horror. 135 AM was good, and I loved Delilah, but I think that one actually beats it by a margin. There's a lot I like about it. I can't think of anything I could do to improve this story, you know, like...
Yeah,
the only thing I might change is probably fan service stuff. Have more of Freddy, I like Freddy. No. This story is doing what Fazbear Frights does best, and is going into the human emotion and response to these kind of, well, not even paranormal events. This is the same reason I love The Cliffs. It's deception. Not everything is what it seems. That is what FNaF is all about. And it's like, this is scarier because this could actually happen. The Cliffs and Pizza Kit could happen in the real world, because there's nothing paranormal about them.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Like, it's a very different kind of horror, and it's built up so incredibly well. I don't know. I love Pizza Kid. I think everything about it is pretty much flawless.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like the most I think that we've ever analyzed the Fright story. So maybe you'll be
that was
able
so
to
in depth.
Pick your favorite by the time we're done with this.
Like, I definitely can't with some of that on my own, but you've definitely made me think. And back to the alignment chart, of course, guys. Again, you know, tier list is pretty much the same. But yeah, where did I put everything? I'm trying to make sure this is consistent. Yeah, Jump for Tickets was an A rank, and lore relevance, not much, but that doesn't mean it's a bad story. And yeah, then, of course, Pizza Kit. Pizza Kit is what we call goated in the business. I will say there's, like, virtually no lore relevance, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a lot of lore relevance here. It's just the best writing I think I've seen in the entire series.
you could just headcanon, oh yeah, Freddy's has like a factory, like Thousand Tons are in factory feeds. I mean, logically they must do, but whatever, man. Like, no, the writing's the important thing. Right. But yeah, I'm just gonna catch up with chat now that we've finished the volume, because I did not respond to some messages. I do see them all, but yeah, no series can be perfect. We need to accept that. I absolutely agree. At this point, the fanverse is carrying FNaF Lamau. Personally, I agree. Some may disagree, but personally, I think truer words have not been said. Well, they've not much anyway. But yeah, no, I did read all of this. Ennard has similarities to the puppet, the general pose, the three fingers, and the spiral patterns on the legs, for instance. I think the spiral pattern on the legs is a stretch. It's only one of the legs for Ennard, and it's like not a pattern, it's just the build of the endo. But yeah, I know where you're coming from. The, white, pastely, like, masking face. I don't think there's any real connections. The puppet seems to be the only thing that's very much detached from Sister Location in terms of characters. But yeah, Coils is just misunderstood. Exactly. I like that not all of the things are like monsters, Coils is just misunderstood. The Blackbird might just be like Sam, Tag-along Freddy, in my preferred interpretation, is just a functioning Fazbear Entertainment product. For once, it's not actually haunted, it's just working the way it's meant to be. And Pizza Kit, I mean, the antagonist is Peyton's own imagination, Maybe Marley for pulling such a mean prank, but yeah, I don't know. I think, like, I'm not a prankster. In my life, I've never done pranks, never had been pranked that much, but I think, obviously, like, you gotta know the boundaries and limits of the people you're pranking. I would prank my siblings way more if I knew that they could take it. But the thing is, past experiences have shown me that, like, it just comes across as mean all too often. And you gotta, like, be able to have that mutual trust. If I prank my sibling, it's probably just gonna be in Minecraft or something, Oh yeah, I didn't know that, Duncan. I'd forgot about that, seemed the phone. Glad you guys agree that Pizza Kit is amazing, pretty funny as well, I guess. What are you finding on Google Images?
Maybe.
There's actually fan art of Marley's hand coming out of Peyton. Oh god.
Oh wow, I think I've seen those.
Oh, I don't wanna. That's so gritty, man. I know it's just a nightmare, but like that's still. I mean, this is all fiction, but it doesn't take away from how scary it can be,
I mean, yeah, the first time I read Pizza Kit, like the ending, like the nightmare sequence, basically, where like it kind of reminded me of the Breaking Wheel almost, except it did like another 180.
Yeah, it did like it did a 360, guys. It did two 180s, and it stayed
like that
consistent.
one moment where like it pops up in the nightmare, where basically I think like it was when her eyes basically shot out of her head onto the bathroom mirror. That's I think the only time a Fazbear Fright story has actually made my jaw drop.
Yeah, I was so confused reading it because like part of me was thinking, is this just a dream? Because she like come out of bed, but I think I like half predicted that. But it was still very creepy because after seeing, Puppet Carver, like, anything's on the table.
Yeah.
Sorry, I almost choked there. Yeah, so that's that. A factory, you say? Yes, DJ. Do with it what you will. When will we get Fazbear Investigators, Frights? Have Fetch appear in your FNaF Minecraft roleplays. Make it happen. But yeah, man. It's interesting to see how these volumes spread as well. Volume 8 was weak. They're all in D and ET, whereas, Volume 9 has managed to have a story in both the S rank and the F rank on my end, which is, that's how most of them tend to be.
It's interesting. Volume 9, I feel like, has, like, one terrible story, one pretty decent story, and one amazing story, whereas Book 8 is pretty weak. It's got, Gumdrop Angel and What We Found are definitely some of the weaker stories in this entire series, and Sergio's Lucky Day is just the definition of average, I would say. Yeah,
honestly. The fact that your number one and, like, your most favorite and least favorite stories are in the same volume, Pizza Kit and Puppet Carver, that's insane, dude.
I wish Puppet Carver was better, because then Book 9 would be my favorite book, hands down, but I gotta give it to Book 6 because it's just like so much more consistent.
Exactly, like, look at this. Real Jake Blackbird hide and seek. I put hide and seek a bit lower than Ambience, guys. Like, those are all in the top ranks. I mean, even Into the Pit, the first volume, it's all in B and C tier for me, but, like, it's consistent, and which is why I much prefer it over something. I think, because the Jump for Tickets is in A rank, I can stand volume 9, but, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, like, even if we say hide and seek is, like, average, I mean, Blackbird and Real Jake are pretty outstanding.
Right, and 2 of the 3 is enough, I think. Like, I can ignore Puppet Cover for the other
Especially
two.
since hide and seek isn't even a bad story, it's just a pretty average one.
Yeah, I just, again, I think it's pretty average. It's a good one. You know, same with the others here. You can see, even Count the Ways, you know, Man in Room 1280, New Kid, Breaking Wheel. Volume 4 is probably one of my favorites, but Dance With Me is the weak link.
Yeah, Dance With Me is pretty weak. Yeah, I brought up, like, a few things that I do think
Volume 3 is quite
story. Like, Casey's a pretty good character. They, like, travel, like, all over the U.S., basically, which is really cool. Yeah,
that was
pretty
cool.
Interesting.
But, we talked about this last time. So we're going to move on. But, Fazbear Frights. Volume, we're on 10 now. Friendly Face, next story. I actually quite like this one. I'm not sure where exactly I'd rank it, though.
I think it's okay. The thing that holds it back is I feel like this was trying to recapture the magic of 1:35 a.m. and didn't quite manage to do it, but I think there are some significant differences.
Yeah, I wouldn't, I don't know. I don't think it leans into the psychological terror quite as much as 1:35 a.m. or Pizza Kit. It's more on guilt, regret, consequences, kind of like...
It's not like a full 1:35 a.m. clone. It kind of reminds me of like 1:35 a.m. plus Jump for Tickets, I guess, with like the ending of Step Closer. I don't know. It's pretty weird. Feels like a combo of stories.
Maybe a bit of Bunny Cool, because that one emphasized consequences, right? And I don't know. This one starts off really happy, and it just kind of goes downhill. You can see the Step Closer ending, though. I know what you mean.
This one was interesting because if you stop at page 30, this is like such a wholesome story. And then it gets like so dark later on.
It starts off, there's this beautiful story of 2 young boys. I think the protagonist is called Oscar. They find this stray cat and they adopt it, and it's just really wholesome. I'm like, where is this going? This isn't connected to FNaF, but I like it. I'm invested in these protagonists. Like,
protagonist
honestly,
Edward, by the way. Oscar is
Edward, that was it. Again, they're like 13, 14-year-olds, you know, behaving like 13, 14-year-olds. They're reasonably flawed. They're not amazing, but, like, I feel like I've met people like them in my life, and I'm related to them in some ways a bit. It's hard to explain, but, like, I like them. You know, I feel like I'd hang out with them if I went to their school. And they adopt this cat, alright? It's beautiful. And then it's like, you know, it just, like, there's, well... I suppose you could say that, that twist came in like a truck. Hit him like a truck. Because, one time the boys are just playing with the cat. They've spent weeks, like, building stuff for it. And it's like, Edward is, like, a real nerd. He's, like, viewing it as a science experiment. And, like, probably is, like, less empathetic, on the outside. But they both have this quite deep affection for the cat. So, you know... wholesome love triangle. And then the cat, I forget the cat's name. It had a name.
Faraday.
Faraday, that was it. They named him after the scientist. Yeah, Faraday the cat is chasing a butterfly, and the boys run out and follow them because the butterfly has gone out to the road outside. I think is it Edward's house, and then Faraday follows, and then Edward's going, and then
Jack's house.
Jack's house. Sorry, I forget the character's names. I get them mixed up. Oscar. Okay. Point is, right. Is it Jack? Who
Jack's the best friend.
Yeah. They get run over. Faraday and one of the boys get run over by like a truck, like a van or something. It's like just a car accident. It just comes completely out of the blue. It's just a straight up car accident, just because they accidentally ran out of the road without looking at the wrong time, because Faraday was rushing out there. And it's so shocking. I don't think it's bad though, because it's like, you realize once you finish it, the first 8 pages there were to build up the weight behind the concept, like this whole thing. The amount of loss that like the protagonist experiences you understand, because you saw the journey, you saw the rise before the fall. And, yeah.
I think it does that really great in hindsight, because, like, I actually felt Edward's loss, like, during that point. I was freaking crushed, like, when,
it was depressing.
When the truck came in, like, ran over, Jack and Faraday. Like, the story had been so happy up to that point, and then have it just, like, come like this, and you just feel it all crashing down in one moment. It was just, you could really feel it. Like, it was really sad.
So, you're probably wondering how this monstrosity plays into the story. And don't worry, it's not clickbait this time. So, Edward, becoming, you know, more desperate and more lonely as time gets on. His two best friends, killed in a freak accident, have left this young boy scarred. So, after seeing an advert on TV from Fazbear Entertainment, basically advertising what they call the friendly face, where, and get this, you take a hair from your, you know, deceased cat or like pet, for them to take the DNA of to put, like, grow a face onto a robotic, like, cat pet as like a replacement. It's really freaky. And I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I feel like it doesn't fit the frame of FNaF. It doesn't really have a clear reason to exist. I guess if this is happening in the future, you can kind of add that stuff. It's not as bad as Fazgoo, but friendly face concept is weird. And Edward rushes back to the site of the accident to get a hair for this. And, you know, time passes, he buys this, and when it's finally delivered, he gets this. The hair he picked wasn't from Faraday, it was from his friend Jack. So now there's this disturbing, you know, human face. The face of, you know, his best friend, pasted onto this weird, like, animatronic cat's body. I think the concept is super freaky, but I can kind of let it pass, because I think the story's writing is good. The characters and the pacing work. And yeah, he basically gets freaked out by this thing, and the friendly face follows him everywhere. And it's one of those things where, like with Coils, I don't think the friendly face is actually hostile. I don't think it's haunted. It's just an accident.
It's not.
It's like, you know, the DNA, you know, obviously it's a human's DNA, so it's like got a human face. It's like, it's a bit sci-fi, and like, I don't know, I don't really like the concept, but I feel like the story is alright.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the writing is good. It just feels a bit out there, a little bit absurd. It doesn't really make sense, and even though Fazbear Entertainment is mentioned, it really doesn't feel FNAF-y at all. No, it doesn't. Like, I don't know, it's weird. I feel like I'm willing to let this one slide if maybe things were clarified a bit further, because I've been thinking about a Fazbear Frights timeline, and I'm realizing pretty much like the games after UCN, I think there's a decent possibility that the stories are happening, like, in the future. Like, I mean in the late 21st century, in, like, decades from now, where technology might have advanced to make this kind of thing available, like, for commercial toys. But the fact that, like, this happened and wasn't, like, you know, this oversight wasn't, like, thought of by Fazbear Entertainment is just ridiculous. I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's something that could realistically happen even in the universe, and I think that's the problem. I think maybe if this was like something that was clearly set in the future. It's not even grounded in the rules of FNaF, really. It's not even grounded in the rules of Fazbear Frights at this point. No, it really isn't. So I gotta mark it down for that, which is a shame, because I like everything else about it. It ends with Edward, you know, ironically getting run over by Havan, running away from the friendly face, and it ends with the friendly face just watching him from, you know, the bushes off, like, this, like, highway this road he's run away to, just waiting. And it's, like, from the perspective, it's, like, all childish, and it talks about, like, playing and stuff, and it's like, so this isn't a malicious thing, it's, like, just following its programming. And, I just wish FNaF was more, I guess, consistent, because something that made, I think, well, something that I don't think has really been done perfectly yet, but something that I guess had a bit of charm with Sister Location, Pizzeria Simulator, and the novels, it's hit and miss, but was the alchemy. It was the fusion of science, physics, chemistry with the paranormal, you know? And things like Epilogue 3 have given us massive lore dumps about the Fazbear Frights, like, in-universe logic of possession, about, like, emotional energy, and, you know, the 0 point field, you know, fetch, again, it all ties back.
Which you could assume probably applies to the games and stuff as well. I don't see why not, and, you know, that's something I'm going to investigate more deeply as time goes on. But, like, this, whereas a lot of stories in this go pure paranormal and work, like Step Closer, or maybe Bunny Call, or, you know, even Coming Home, because there's no scientific explanation for some of the paranormal events. Blackbird, maybe, because, again, that one's, like, so open to interpretation. It's, like, it really leans into the paranormal. So having, like, a story that really leans into the sci-fi, going back to Sister Location, rather than, like, you know, FNaF 3, it feels out of place. And it just feels like it's not very FNaF-y. I feel like FNaF doesn't quite have a cemented identity. It can't decide where it wants to sit on this kind of, you know, horror, paranormal, science fiction, you know, technology thing. It hasn't really fused them perfectly yet, I don't think. I think that's the problem with this story.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do there, that's for sure. But yeah, it doesn't really feel grounded like within the rules of FNaF or within the rules of Fazbear Frights. Overall, I really do not think it's a bad story. It's got pretty good writing. It's got nice, believable characters. I will say that I did kind of predict the ending. I figured there was going to be some kind of, not even like karmic thing necessarily, but just like, you know, irony almost, like
yes,
we're getting run over by a truck. It was very predictable. I feel like I even predicted that the friendly face was going to turn out to be, well, just that, friendly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty creepy concept. It was pretty predictable, but overall, the concept, even if it's pretty absurd, it's still fairly creepy. The characters are well written, and overall, it's very good writing and it's decent pacing, so I really can't knock it down too much.
Yeah, I am putting it exactly in the middle on the C rank, because what I was saying about the concept of the friendly face and all that would definitely put it in an E, but the writing and the characters and everything puts it in A for me, so it's being strung between guys, you know. Like that one scene in Spider-Man Homecoming where he's trying to, like, pull the boat back together. That's how I feel about Friendly Face.
Pretty much.
Sea Bonnies is next up, and we are about 2 hours into the stream, so I think we'll probably finish this within an hour. I think we're almost there. Let's get on with it.
All right.
Sea Bonnies is interesting. I have mixed feelings on this one too. Talk about it.
Sea Bonnies is very interesting. I do kind of have mixed feelings on this, so... Here's the thing about Sea Bonnies is this is another story that is very much absurd, especially on a surface level. The concept is really weird. Basically, the concept is that there's these extremely tiny fish-like things that are called Sea Bonnies that are... They don't really... I've seen some people like making memes like depicting them just putting fish basically with like FNaF 1 Bonnie's head on them. But not really
I've seen
like
that too.
I forget what they're described as.
Okay, so, like, there's
the
this real-life thing which is really weird, where you can basically buy, like, eggs for, like, tadpoles or, like, small water creatures like fish in places like, you know, like Freddy's Pizzerias, like, attractions. And the idea is that, like, you put them in, like, an aquarium at home and, like, they hatch and stuff. It's like one of those, like, grow-your-own crystals, except they're, like, actual, like, fish. And these ones are deformed to look like Bonnie. They're blue and they have, like, weird... rabbit ears, despite being not microscopic, but like tiny little like insect-sized. I don't even know what they are. They're just
based off sea monkeys. I just remember.
Yeah, sea monkeys are what they're based on. Sea monkeys are disgusting. I'm gonna show you guys an image. But they're based on sea monkeys. Imagine this, but with Bonnie the bunny ears. They are absolutely disgusting. They are these little insect-like water creatures. I hate them. Okay, that's both hilarious and disturbing. It's not this. Don't worry. But if you look at the stream, you can see they're like... I don't even know what they are. Sea insects is the best I can say. But yeah, imagine this, but with, like, deformed ears. And yeah, there's, like 100 of these in, like, the fish tank of the protagonist's younger brother. Lots of brothers in these stories, I have to say. Lots of, younger, older brother, you know, dynamics. I wonder where they got that from.
Yeah.
Anyways, you can explain this one.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels to be made there back to FNaF 4, I think, but that's the topic for another day. So, yeah, it's very much rooted in absurdity, it seems like, especially on a surface level. The main protagonist is Mott. I believe he's about 14 years old or so.
Yeah, like 14. Yeah. They're all about that age. 13, 14, 15.
Yeah, somewhere there. So, he has a younger brother named Rory. So they're hanging out at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It seems kind of like a Step Closer setup, but Mott is actually a much nicer brother than Pete is in Step Closer. Mott, I'm gonna be honest, Mott is an all-around model human being. Dude's amazing. Like, nicest protagonist probably in the entire series. Super kind to his brother, even though his brother's pretty obnoxious to him a lot of the time. Just all-around nice guy. So his brother runs up to him and has this these eggs, basically, that are supposed to hatch into sea bonnies. And there's a lot of them. There's several hundred of them. They're very small, the sea bonnies are. So they go back home. They dump the eggs into the fish tank. And then a few days later, the eggs hatch. And the sea bonnies come out. The sea bonnies, like Matt said, they're basically sea monkeys, basically, is what they're based off of, with, like, Bonnie to Bunny ears. They're pretty
saw
deformed.
them.
It's kind of weird.
And there's like a swarm of them. They're just gross.
Yeah, there's so many of them. They're incredibly small, but there's a lot of them. So, Mott is understandably kind of freaked out by these things. They're pretty weird. So, he's staring at the fish tank, and then Rory leaves the room, and he essentially hears the sea bonnies talking to him from inside of his own head.
It's like there's voices in his head.
Yeah, this part, I think it was supposed to be, like, a little freaky, but it's actually really funny to me, because Mott and the sea bonnies basically almost get into an argument of sorts, where Mott basically, I think he calls them, like, glorified fish bait. It's just like their 2008, like, Xbox Live COD kids. Basically.
Right? Yeah! It's like some...
It's the funniest thing ever to me.
Yeah. I just, it came off really weird. Like, they creeped me out, but, like, it was just goofy.
Yeah, that sequence was really goofy. That sequence made me laugh quite a bit. There's a lot of stuff in this story that, like, it's like, this is a horror story? Like, really? It's so weird. There's another sequence, where Rory talks about hanging out with, the neighbor who has a dog, and they were trying to figure out what to name the dog, and they just called him the puppy in the meantime. So they ended up calling him the puppy, as in the baby. So, there's the baby reference in this story.
Canon! The baby is canon!
Yeah. They chase the dog around yelling, "What's up, the pup?" And it's like, what? Like, it's the most random...
The baby is
like,
canon to Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, it made me laugh, like, so hard the first time it happened.
Forgotten about
I had to
this.
remind myself I was reading a Fazbear Frights story.
Yeah, it was, threw me off.
Yeah, it's crazy. But despite how this story sounds, there actually is some semblance of real horror that kicks in fairly soon.
It is pretty scary in parts.
Yeah. So Mott is pretty much sick of the sea bonnies at this point, and he just decides to dump the fish tank into the toilet and flush the things. So he does that. And I think everyone kind of predicted that this really wasn't going to work. So they essentially end up in the water system, basically. And he goes to get a drink from the bathroom sink one night, and he feels like he swallowed something. Like, it's almost like a sea bonnie that he swallowed. So he's a little bit freaked out by it. It's a bit like Pizza Kit, basically, kind of is in that phobia of things being in your food, except in this case it's in your drink, in your water. So the sea bonnie, he thinks the sea bonnie is inside of his body, basically. Also, here's the interesting thing about these sea bonnies. They can multiply a lot, and they can do it pretty quickly. So, even though one sea bonnie being in Mott sounds like fairly harmless, it's really not. These things can multiply a lot. There's a ton of them. So, and here's the interesting thing, and this is why I don't hate this story. Mott is actually a smart protagonist. He thinks he swallowed the sea bonnie. He doesn't waste time guessing. You know what he does? He books the doctor's appointment. He goes right there and he asks for an x-ray. He is basically the only smart protagonist in the entire series. So he goes to the doctor. They can't find anything wrong with him, basically. So he goes back home. He tries to sleep it off. He thinks maybe he's paranoid. As it turns out, just like Pizza... Well, Pizza Kit was kind of the opposite, I guess. But it turns out that he's not paranoid, and the sea bonnies start multiplying and spreading around in him.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, too, throughout the story, before he flushed the sea bonnies, there was another fish in the tank that was owned by Mott's brother, Rory. It was named Fritz.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah. So the sea bonnies basically circle around the thing and just kind of eat it and then replace it. So they just, like, they cannibalize the thing and just tear it to shreds. And then they swim in, like, a very similar pattern. So it's basically the exact same shape as the fish, Fritz, except it's made up of a bunch of sea bonnies swarming together.
Yeah.
And that's foreshadowing for what happens later on. So the sea bonnies multiply in Mott. He eventually realizes what's going on. He tries to get to the doctor, and as soon as he starts going there, the sea bonnies start spreading all over his body, basically.
They're replacing his tissue, guys, his organs.
Yeah, they start eating his flesh and his tissue and his organs, and they start replacing it. So they swarm
from
into
the
circles,
inside.
basically. Yeah, his arm is sea bonnies. His heart is sea bonnies. His lungs are sea bonnies. Everything is sea bonnies. So, right as he gets to the doctor's office, eventually, he reaches out, his hand turns into sea bonnies again, he collapses, and he loses consciousness because by this point, they've spread all over his body.
It's dark, it's raining, pounding it down late at night, in the evening. Yeah, and then the ending.
Yep, so then, the ending. So, the nurse opens the door to the doctor's office, sees Mott standing out there, and is like, he looks really discolored. He's, you know, kind of blue. So basically the same thing that happened to the fish earlier happened to Mott. So they basically ate him and then replaced him in his shape. So they go up there, the nurse sees him, offers to bring him inside, he just walks away, the nurse closes the door, and then the last thing we see is the sea bunnies collapse basically back into their regular form and they start swimming away.
Yeah, it's weird. So, like, Mott is obviously like, desperately clinging, crawling back to the doctor's office to get there before, like, he dies. And it's like, just as he gets there, you know, the nurse is on the computer side, she hears something at the door, she checks it out, and then Mott's there, but obviously it's not Mott. And he's, like, you know, behaving differently. He's like, you know, no, everything's alright. And he just like, he's all neutral, and then he turns away because it's the sea bonnies, and yeah. The way it's described is pretty vague. It's like the nurse sees him walk away, and it's like he blurs out and melts the shadows in a way she can't perceive, or something like that. And she like presumably close the door and stuff. But yeah, I think what happens is that after that, they don't permanently replace Mott like with, you know, I'm trying to think of an example. There's so many of these stories now.
Lonely Freddy.
Yeah, Lonely Freddy. It's not like Lonely Freddy, where the, you know, Fazbear Entertainment thing, which is presumably infested with the agony, or maybe it's actually doing thing by design like the Fazbear, which is even weirder. How does that work? You know, it just returns to its original shape. They just kind of melt. It's like, you know, they all flush away, and now they're just out there. And, like, I think, I dislike the sea bonnies for the same reason as Fazgoo. It's not nearly as bad. I didn't even know sea monkeys were a real life thing, which really freaked me out with this one. This is one of the scary stories for me personally. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it was like a specific phobia, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was definitely scary. I took it seriously. But like, how? And it's never, again, it's just one of those things that's never addressed again. But I will say, the tension build-up was good. The thought process of the protagonist was amazing. As you said, intelligent. I like how he goes to the doctors and like, you know, comes out with nothing. Oh, I must be getting paranoid. But then he starts like, you know, melting into sea bonnies, you know, during the night as he goes back to the doctors again on his own. It's just, I don't know. I think, again, how did the sea bonnies, like, telepathically, like, communicate with him? Are they in his head? I mean, are they haunted? It's just a bit weird. And I felt the nature of the sea bonnies could be explored more.
Yeah. There's no information on how these things came to exist, why these things came to exist, what their motives are, what their abilities are. Like, there's pretty much no info on them, kind of like Fazgoo a little bit. Again, it's a very absurd story. It has an incredibly strange concept.
And a baby reference.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's all over the place. There's a lot of downfalls with the story where it kind of jumps from being super serious to being just completely ridiculous. It's just, it bounces back and forth, and it doesn't really stay consistent.
It's a tonal issue.
Yeah, there's definitely big things wrong with the story, but I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people like think when they hear sea bonnies. They typically like, freak out on the same level as in the flesh. I don't think it's that bad. It's not in the flesh bad. There's a few redeeming things here. The entire thing is actually scary. It doesn't feel completely over the top. It just feels like the concept is a bit absurd, but the gore and stuff isn't completely over the top like In the Flesh is, so it still manages to be reasonably scary. The biggest saving grace of this is I think it has the best one of the best protagonists. I can't put him above like Lila or anything, but one of the best protagonists in the entire series. Yeah. Just an incredibly intelligent guy, basically, who's also very nice. He's not a jerk. There's not any karmic justice here.
Model human being.
You feel bad for him because he's actually a really nice guy who like didn't do anything to deserve this happening to him, essentially. And he's also a really smart guy who just immediately reacts to stuff as it's going on, and he still dies horribly at the end. And I think that's part of good horror, is being able to have the protagonist killed off in a gruesome manner while they're actually realistic and smart and doing everything they can to prevent it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really struggling to rank this one because, again, it's like Friendly Face. Like, there's so much that it's the exact same problem. The characters and like the quality of the writing, everything is pulling it up, but it's being pulled down by the absurdity of the like concepts and like, you know, I will say something which Friendly Face didn't have a problem with, which this one did for me, was, as you say, the kind of tone being like too lighthearted and then too serious and kind of, you know, bouncing back and forth a bit too much. So I'm gonna put it in the D because of that. But it's absolutely not as bad as, you know, these E or F rank games. It's nowhere near as bad as In the Flesh. It's not as bad as What We Found. Definitely not a story that I liked or I think I'll come back to, but it has its merits. It definitely has its merits. And yeah, right. Yeah, kind of like room for one more. And this is where Duncan is about to get spoiled, apparently. Alright, dude. Well, if you want, you can leave the stream and come back after you've read the books. You know, we're not going anywhere. Although I am going to say this. Find Player 2 is the best story at the ones coming up. Other than the epilogues, you're... Oh, actually, Together Forever. Look, you're not missing much with Prankster and Kids at Play, is all I'm saying. So if you've got... You know, if you're worried about getting spoiled, you know, maybe those ones don't matter. Just my opinion, though. Maybe I shouldn't colour your view before you actually read them. But yeah, exactly, Super Soul. Body snatching, people getting, you know, their bodies swapped with an animatronic, or like having themselves like killed from the inside out by some kind of weird chemical. Yeah, that's what Fazbear Frights has established itself to be about. I don't know. Together Forever is the next story coming up. So to end volume 10.
Okay. Together Forever, I actually think this is a pretty underrated story. I really like this one. It's not, like, my favorite. It's probably not top 3, but it's actually, like, I actually think it's quite a bit underrated. Yeah. So, this story is the first time in the entire official FNaF series anywhere that we actually witness a spring lock failure up close, and it is just as incredibly gruesome as it sounds. It is terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, we did get, you know, the FNaF 3 minigame, and we did get in the Silver Eyes, you know, William Afton's death. Oh, I guess. Yeah. Whatever, like the games. But yeah, this is from the perspective of the person being spring-locked. It's not like anything we've seen before, and it's crazy. You tell the story. Tell the story.
Alright, so, summary. Main protagonist is Jessica, about 15-year-old high school girl. Secondary protagonist is her best friend named Brittany. They are essentially identical in pretty much every way, so there's not even that much point differentiating them. They are the typical high school mean girls that you will see in every single American teen drama, basically. That is exactly what they are. Mean girls. Yeah, that's exactly what they are. They're not terrible people, but they're not exactly the nicest either. So there's 2 younger kids that follow them around that are about 13 years old, I think. So actually only like 2 years younger than them, but they're treated as like a lot younger.
High school moment.
They're like best friends, I believe, named Mindy and Cindy. They have rhyming names, which is kind of weird. But so Jessica and Brittany view them as very, very annoying. They're really nothing but nice to them is the thing, like to Jessica and Brittany. I mean, you know, they're children. They're overexcitable, they're slightly obnoxious, but overall, they're nice. They don't really do anything to warrant the terrible treatment that they give them. So, the first, like, half of the story, I wasn't really liking it. I actually, like, almost fell asleep at a certain point during the first half. But the really good stuff, I think, starts later on. So, the first half is basically just build up of them running into Mindy and Cindy and being obnoxious to them, building their social lives, basically building the world, all that. So then about halfway through is where it gets interesting. So they decide they're going to take this robotics class for some easy credit. And their professor introduces a animatronic named Rosie Porkchop, which is basically like a bigger version of Pig Patch, almost, I guess is like the best way to describe it.
It's a female pig animatronic, but it's not just any ordinary animatronic.
It is not. So their project, basically, is that they're going to program this animatronic to do something, I believe is their task. So Jessica and Brittany are assigned to work on this together. So they decide that they're going to kind of skip out of the class for now, and they get permission to come back later that night when the school is closed in order to work on it. They basically get a key there. So they come back later after a bit more like social life, bit more world building. So they come back into the school. They're a little bit freaked out already just because the school, it's dark. It looks different at night. I think everyone kind of has that fear, like going back to a place they've only seen during the daytime. It's pretty freaky to go back there at night.
Schools have a completely different vibe when it's like nighttime and there's no one around. It's actually a little bit creepy. Sometimes though, I'm at school late at night for whatever reason, and it's like, I love the freedom of this. I can run through the hallways, no one can stop me now. It's something.
Yeah. There's two like different vibes, I think there, but I think everyone's always been like a little bit creeped out by going to a normally like crowded, well-lit place during the night.
Yeah, same with other like public places as well.
Yeah, so again, it plays off of like a pretty specific fear, pretty specific phobia, I think. So they're already a little bit freaked out by the time they go into the classroom. So they decide they're going to program the animatronic, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to program it to do. So they think for a little bit, and they decide, oh, well, we're going to use this to get revenge on Mindy and Cindy. Those two brats will never see what hit them. So they basically decide that they're going to program the animatronic to, they find out that Rosie is like a stomach cavity, basically, they can open. So they're going to program it to grab Mindy and Cindy and then basically have it follow them around for a day and force Mindy and Cindy to do their bidding, basically. It's a pretty mean-spirited thing that they come up with, which makes it a little bit easier to witness their fates later on.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So they program it, and Jessica is kind of stupid. She doesn't really know anything about programming, so she's just kind of making random inputs and hoping that it works. So it seems to work at first. They activate the animatronic. It kind of like turns back and forth. They're like, okay, this is working, great. And then it turns to Brittany, and then it just kind of grabs her and holds her upside down and is trying to force her into its stomach cavity inside of the suit. So they start freaking out. They're like, you know what? That didn't go according to plan. So, despite their efforts, Brittany gets pulled into the stomach cavity of the thing, and then it shuts off completely. So Jessica can hear her from inside and is trying to figure out how to get her out of there. The animatronic's pretty tall, so she can't really see very well up on the higher portions of it. So she's looking for a button or a switch that is going to allow her to open the stomach cavity and get Brittany out of there. So she flips a switch, it's silent for a second, and then the only thing that she hears is just, like, pure agonizing screams from inside of the animatronic. So it's around this point, I think, that avid FNaF fans started to realize, oh, this is a Springlock suit. So Rosie Porkchop is a decommissioned Springlock suit, and Jessica just accidentally set off the Springlocks while her friend is inside. So she gets Springlocked to death and absolutely skewered inside of the thing. And then a few seconds after, while Jessica is still shocked, she's trying to figure out what to do. She sees blood on the animatronic. She's trying to figure out whether she should run or whether she should call for help. And then Rosie Porkchop turns and grabs her too, and basically does the exact same thing that it did with Brittany.
I just remembered
into the stomach cavity. Yeah?
This isn't actually the first time we've had. I mean, this is the first time we've had a Springlock failure from the perspective of someone being Springlocked, but actually we did see one very up close in the New Kid. because I was just remembering
Oh.
the specific description of the spring lock failure in the new kid. I forgot about this as well. But guys, when Devon goes to pull his prank, I think it's what's his name, Kelsey, in the suit, like wearing Golden Freddy. It's a very specific sequence of events. It starts with the suit freezing up and like a kind of series of small clicks and like ticks, and then I'm trying to remember. That's like the spring locks, like, I don't actually know how the mechanism works. Not sure how, I guess it's them opening, and then the sound of, like, the, animatronic parts being held back, crushing the human soul, like the, you know, ear-piercing. Oh, no. There's like because it's all old and rusty, it's like an ear-piercing, you know, fingernails and a blackboard scratching noise of, like, the, like, locks coming use. And then it's the slam, crush, and, you know, screams of the person being slammed by pieces of metal in all directions and crushed by the animatronic parts, compressing back into, you know, animatronic mode with the person inside. And then it's just silence, because once the, you know, vocal cords are severed, they pretty much just twitch there, and the suit's shaking and, like, rattling around with loads of force. It's exactly what we saw in the FNaF minigames, but the sound and the description of that is harrowing. And I don't think they described it the same way here, but it's pretty much the same thing. It's a spring lock failure. I just remembered that.
Yeah, so we have seen spring lock failure before in the new kid. I think it was a little bit more bearable here after the story was finished, because Kelsey, we don't even know what Kelsey was. He somehow
that was weird.
Could be some sort of spirit. He may not have even gotten spring locked in the first place.
Bet Fazgoo.
Yeah.
Like, that wouldn't even surprise me, honestly. Guys, he's
really
someone
would.
who got body swapped by Lonely Freddy and Fazgoo. Alright, it's all connected. Alright.
At this point, I wouldn't doubt it. Back to Together Forever. So Jessica gets forced inside of the stomach cavity of this animatronic and is looking around a little bit, and then basically just feels bits and pieces of Brittany's skin all around her, because, you know, she got absolutely skewered. So she then turns and sees on one side of the animatronic, directly in front of her, Brittany's face with her mouth stretched open. Basically, is just pinned, like her disembodied face is just pinned to the side of the animatronic inside. So she starts screaming in there, and tries to, like, can't get out, basically, has no way to get out. And then you hear a click, and there's a moment where she realizes that she's about to die, and then the spring lock snaps shut, and the last thing we hear, basically, is just her in agonizing pain. That's her last thought. The ending takes place immediately after this, or pretty soon after this. So Mindy and Cindy come into the classroom and find Rosie Porkchop, and Rosie Porkchop starts following them around basically for the entire day and helping them with their books and stuff. So Jessica's programming worked, except she was somehow dumb enough that she inputted her and Brittany as the targets instead of Mindy and Cindy, which directly led to them getting scooped in the spring lock failure. And it's a little bit kind of relieving, actually, that it happens this way, because they could have very easily killed two 13-year-old children in a spring lock failure who were nothing but nice to them.
Yeah.
So, like, if you had to pick, I'd rather it happen to Jessica and Brittany, gonna be honest.
This is extreme karmic justice, and I wouldn't wish this upon, well, anyone, really. But yeah, better this than poor little Cindy and Mindy getting spring-locked. Can you imagine? It'd be even worse with those innocent little girls, rather than, like, the, you know, the teen mean girls. So, it's another story about consequences, you know, and, I guess, like, you know, action and, what do you call it? Cause and effect? Yeah. Kind of like Bonnie-Call. Or maybe, maybe Step Closer?
I'd say Blackbird.
Blackbird, yeah, exactly like Blackbird. Yeah. See, this guy knows. So, for Together Forever, the characters were, like, more on the flawed side, like, they were unlikable, but I think it wasn't in a way which was obnoxious, like, it made sense for the plot. I think it was slow to start, but the fact that we got spring lock suits being used again was awesome, great concept. Hello. One moment, fellas.
Right. But yeah, real quick, guys, also, the final visual of the story is really haunting to me, by the way. So, the final visual that we get, basically, is Jessica and Brittany's disembodied faces on each side of the animatronic, just staring at each other for eternity. That is Together Forever, basically. That is the concept of the story, and all of a sudden
why
the
it's
name
titled
makes
that.
sense. Their disembodied faces are together forever in the Springlock suit, staring into each other's dead eyes for all of eternity.
Yeah, which is horrifying. And knowing how FNaF works,
Yeah.
presumably their remnant is now haunting the suit. So they are now like Rosie Porkchop. But yeah, Together Forever. I felt like the pacing was slow to start. It really didn't grab me that much.
Yeah, the first half wasn't that riveting. I think the
Concept
second half
was
was
pretty
great.
good. Again, use of Springlock suit was fantastic. The fact that we got 2 Springlockings in a row like that is just kind of amazing. Kind of incredible.
Yeah.
Because I think the switch on the back of like her neck or whatever is actually the thing that changes it from animatronic mode to suit mode. So technically, one of the girls killed the other by messing with that.
Yeah.
However, how she then got springlocked again is unclear, but the suit's old, rusty. I think there's a bunch of theories about this, but yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Real quick though, this ending though is just like huge theory fodder. I think this entire story is. I have a theory, like even before all of this, that the Cindy in the story is actually Cindy McKenzie, Bob's daughter from Bunny Call. They're described to be basically identical, exact same name, exact same personality. Appearance-wise, matches up perfectly. I like fully headcanon that they're the same character and that those
Thematic connection too, so I buy that.
Yeah. And then there's a ton of theories about how Jessica got springlocked after being pulled into the suit, despite the fact there was no one around. I've got a lot of theories about this. The simplest explanation is just that the suit is rusty and it malfunctioned and went off. There's a few other theories, like, for example, Brittany. We know that Brittany possesses Rosie Porkchop. Maybe she blames Jessica for her death.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe she just doesn't want to be alone with death and wants her best friend then there with her.
Exactly,
There's a lot of explanations. There were motives for that. The professor was super sketchy also. Like, earlier in the story, was a weird guy. Could have snuck back in. Hell, could have even been Eleanor in disguise for all we know at this point.
Man, yeah, who knows? It wasn't like the guy from He Told Me Everything, but yeah, like... I mean, the fact that he didn't seem to really know about the suit, I mean, like, I don't think it's a stretch that a Fazbear Entertainment, you know, like, animatronic could end up in a school. Like, that didn't really get explained, but I was fine with that. Like, I thought it was pretty obvious that that was what was going on. Which is, you know,
especially
like,
for
better bubbling. But yeah, exactly, like, this is exactly, like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, considering everything Fazbear Entertainment's up to in this universe, if they had their own, like, robotics course or something. That's the kind of thing they do, because they're clearly branching out into multiple, like, industries in this one, because Fazbear Entertainment, you know, they actually own their own pizza factory, they manufacture toys, rather than, like, you know, restaurants. These days, there are still open restaurants, you know. Timeline's kind of weird, because the man in room 1280 has, like, the distribution center be, like, operational. But it's clearly been a very, very long time since, you know, the heyday of Freddy's with, like, the pizzeria from Lonely Freddy or Jump for Tickets. So I think the timeline for Fazbear Frights is going to be interesting to piece together. But yeah, I don't know how to feel about Together Forever, because, like... On the one hand, like, I don't know, it's kind of mediocre to me, but, you know, the characters, like, aren't, like, good protagonists, but, like, they're supposed to be kind of unlikable, and they, you know, pay the consequence for their own actions, and, you know, the concept of the Springlock suit is cool, but, I don't know, I'm gonna give it a B. Yeah. I feel like it is underrated, because... there's nothing that really drags it down. I just feel like there could have been more to it. It didn't really, I mean, it did feel like a FNaF story. The Springlock suit, I think, was enough to make it feel like a FNaF story, but it's like, again, like too many of the later stories, it leaves just a bit too much unanswered, you know. It's just like, the plot line is literally, mean girls, you know, set up prank to bully younger girls using a death trap suit that backfires on them. Like, that's it. And it's like the whole first half of the story is pretty slowly paced. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a C again. I don't think it's worthy of a B for me.
The first half is
kind of unremarkable.
I feel like there could have been more content there. Overall, though, I still like it because I think it probably does karmic justice the best out of any story.
It does.
Like, on its core level.
Yeah, I guess. It's definitely pretty clear with that whole theme. Nah, I can't decide. I think I am gonna give it a B. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like there was pacing issues, and ties to FNaF were kind of lackluster. But I mean, there is theory fodder. Yeah, there are characters that are written pretty well. Karmic Justice is executed perfectly. I'm gonna give it a B.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm actually gonna add it.
Yeah. Like I enjoy thinking about this one. It gives me a lot to speculate about in multiple different areas. There's the whole Cindy connection, possibly the bunny call, maybe to the epilogues. There's a character named Evan that pops up again.
Oh my god, another Evan.
Yeah. Then there's the whole Springlock thing. Like, like how Jessica dies. Like, there's so much theory fodder. I really like it.
You gotta love theory fodder as a theorist. Honestly, the fact that the name Evan keeps randomly popping up, like the name Mike and whatever in these stories, is convincing me more that that's not the name of the bite victim. But like, if Cassidy is the bite victim's name, then what about the 5th MCI victim? Like, whichever way you twist it, like, we're still missing a name, and it's like, there is evidence for Evan. I think it's a coincidence that it came up in the logbook, but I mean, there is evidence. There's no other name. Yeah. I mean, it's been 4 years. I feel like Evan's a coincidence because they couldn't get N to fit the proper formula, but also Cassidy was found like really quickly. If there was another name, we would have got it by now. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, I feel like Two Souls in Golden Freddy explains a lot, but the evidence for it is a bit scattered. I kind of want it to be true, but I don't think I can empirically say it is. I don't know. It's a weird one.
It's pretty weird. But yeah, if you want to finish up the alignment chart, catch up with chat.
Yeah,
so I'll be right back in just a minute.
Alright, guys, while he's going AFK, I'm going to take this opportunity to let you all know that you need to hit that subscribe button, baby. I didn't even think about placing this. Hold on. Together Forever. I mean, no, there was actually some lore relevance to this. Together Forever. Not immensely lore relevant, but I think it provokes. It's a very thought-provoking, which is, why we're doing this. Definitely going to understand why Emmett likes it so much. But I'll tell you what, guys, we're getting towards the end of the stream, but while he's gone, I want to let you all know that you need to like, share, and subscribe. Alright, 1,000 subscribers. Alright, special monetization. I'd appreciate it. Only if you think I deserve it, though. I really appreciate all the support for the content lately, guys. It's been insane. Especially, that one Matt's to Miss meme. I don't know how that's done so well, but yeah. My QOTD for today is, what do you hope Tales from the Pizzaplex takes from Fazbear Frights? If you don't know what that is, we'll address it at the end of the stream. We'll talk about it in more detail. For now, I just think if you're bored waiting, because I'm going to go AFK for a bit, you can check out the links in the description below. You've got my social media pages. I have a Discord server. You can interact with the community. You can get notifications for my streams from Instagram. I've got the side channels, the memes, and the highlights where you can upload your own clips and memes of my content, your own, recordings and editings of my streams, if you so wish. They're all linked on the banner. I've even got a Fiverr if you're interested in the services I have to offer over there. I will edit video, edit videos or thumbnails for you. Yeah, you can see all of this here, and, the most important thing is today's charity shout-out, which goes to Ecosia. Fellas, this one is real simple. You don't need to donate. You don't need to spend any money. You just need to get the extension for Google Chrome or whatever browser you're using. Ecosia is a search engine that plants trees. For every search you make, a substantial amount of the profits will go directly towards planting trees to sustain the environment and the ecology of the world. And you can see that thanks to all the use that Ecosia's had by myself and other users for the years now, we together have planted hundreds of thousands of trees. And if, you don't believe it, it might sound too good to be true, but it's totally certified, alright? These guys are a not-for-profit business. They dedicate 100% of their profits to climate action, with at least 80% financing tree planting projects. They're powered by 200% renewable energy. Ecosia solar panels produce twice the amount of energy needed to power all of their searches. They put privacy first, so even if you're thinking, well, they're better than Google with all this, environmental awareness stuff. Also, thank you for subscribing, Super Soul. I appreciate it very much, my man. I need to work out on, placing that to the side or something so it looks better, but yeah, thank you. These guys always put your privacy first. They anonymize your searches and don't create a profile of you. They're interested in trees and not data. Something that Google and all the other big providers do is harvest your data. They feed on it, and they keep everything forever to create a profile of you to target ads at you. And you know, some people don't like that. Some people don't trust them with all of that information. So if you're the kind of person who uses DuckDuckGo, this is just the same, but it also plants trees. They don't keep your data. They have like basic stuff like, you know, your search is in for like a week and then it's just like flushed away and deleted forever. And most importantly, they're completely transparent about everything they do. Detailed financial reports and frequent updates are published every week, and you can find them on this page. If I actually scroll back up, I believe it's right here. This is their revenue for November 2021. Okay, so a little bit behind, but you can actually see, you know, their public reports every month of what exactly they've done with their finance. You can see, actually, yeah, 47% of, you know, third-party advert, you know, profit from searches went directly to planting trees. Obviously, there's operational costs and taxes and the green investments, but you can see for yourself. So they're transparent. They don't keep your data. They don't target ads at you. They plant trees. They're completely renewable. They're better in every way. So please, stop using Google Chrome. Switch to Ecosia. And yeah, I'm done. Welcome back, Ambience. I'm plugging the green stuff. So environmentally friendly. I actually need to go AFK myself. So if you want, you can just carry the stream for a bit. If you want, though, you can just mute. I don't mind. But I will be right back, guys. But yeah, keep talking. And yeah, if you're getting bored waiting, check out the links in the description. I will be back in just a moment.
All right. Okay, guys. So 10 books in. Only have 3 stories left. Let's see, how long have we been streaming? Just under 3 hours. All right, so I think we should be able to wrap this up. Prankster, Kids at Play, not a whole lot I feel like I can talk about there. Find Player 2 is probably gonna have quite a bit, I think. I've got quite a lot to say about that one. So that'll probably take a little while. But yeah, then after that, we'll pretty much be done. If we have time, I think we're going to talk about just our overall opinion of Frights, what we think about the series, and Tales from the Pizzaplex, as well as something else that we wanted to talk about. Kind of figure out where that's going. It's kind of the question of, question of the day also is trying to figure out what we hope that Tales from the Pizzaplex takes from Fazbear Frights. And I think there's a lot of stuff that they can take that Frights did good, and a lot of stuff they can improve on. So we're going to talk about that a little bit too, I think, if we have time. But yeah, 3 more stories left. Next 2 are pretty short, pretty self-explanatory, and then Find Player 2 is probably going to be like the big one that we talk about, I think. And yeah, then after that, we should be done. We're getting pretty close to the goal as well, I believe. The 15 likes or 30 watch hours. I think we're getting pretty close to 15 likes. Let me see here. Yeah, 12 likes, getting pretty close. Might hit it before the end of the stream. I would answer the question of the day myself right here, but like I said, I think we're going to have a segment dedicated to that. Oh, nice. Hope the premiere goes well, DJ. And Find Player 2 is something that I'm excited to talk about, honestly. Really like that story. I feel like there's a lot that people tend to overlook. Not a lot of people really know about a lot of the later stories, especially Book 11. I don't even know. I'm not sure what this music is from. I've never even heard of Five Nights at Tubbyland before, so. Ah, okay. Man, something I'm hoping to see. I think we'll see this like a bit with Tales from the Pizzaplex, but I really want to see like more. I really want to see more content dedicated to the later parts of the Frights. I feel like 1 through 6 gets like a pretty decent amount of content, like especially the first 2 or the first 3. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of stories in the later volumes that are kind of underrated. I'd really like to see content for some of those. Find Player 2 especially is like I said, that and Pizza Kit gotta be some of my favorite stories. Hey Acro. Yeah, it's going pretty well. I actually really like how it's going so far. Been streaming for just under 3 hours. I've had to hydrate quite a bit because I'm not used to talking this much on my own streams. But yeah, overall been super fun so far. I don't get to talk about Frights. I don't get to talk about Frights enough on my channel, dude. Like, I don't know. I love this series, so yeah, it's great to find a way of a stream where I can take a go at it and talk about every single story. I think this is the most underrated part of the entire FNaF canon. Love these books.
Did I miss anything?
Not much. Just catching up with chat, talking about some of the stories in Book 11. Said that Prankster and Kids at Play are going to be pretty short, probably pretty self-explanatory. But
yeah, there's not a whole lot to them.
Yeah, I think we got a little bit more to talk about though for Find Player 2, and hopefully we'll still have time to do that like overall Frights review. And
definitely, this stream has still been a long one. Even the later stories, there's still lots to talk about, but I think we can aim for like 3 hours. How long was the previous one? The previous one was 3 hours and 8 seconds. This is probably going to be a little longer, but let's just go. Catch up with chat though. I missed some good messages earlier. I'm really sorry, guys. There's just so much going on. Acro said that fans breaking security breach is like the kids breaking Mangle. It's come full circle now. Yeah, love that. Forgot to read that one out loud. But I do see all the messages, even if I don't read them all out loud. My chat's not as active as someone like Aviva's, but man, I know he doesn't read every single message. I mean, how could you? You would be able to play the game. Oh
yeah,
boy.
And ignores some stuff.
This is a skill that I'm going to need to learn if, like, my channel grows. Because I'm still at the point where I can read every individual message, as you can see. But it's getting there.
Yeah.
I need to review these stories.
You got that meme blowing up. Maybe it'll transition.
I do. I think it's got to go somewhere. It's definitely boosted Mats to Mist as a whole, which hopefully will boost my main channel. Because if Mats to Mist, if the meme channel outgrows my main channel, I don't know what I'm going to do. That's going to be kind of terrible because it's not my main content, but
yeah, I was just talking about this with some of the guys in the
server I figured.
Like,
if that happens though, I'll have to just do something with the channel to really, you know, respond to that.
I was gonna say if Matt
that would be a wasted opportunity.
Like the main channel that like you spent 3 years like streaming almost every day, like, I can't imagine the reaction.
Because like it's disappointing, but at the same time, it's still great. It's just like. Not exactly what I wanted.
I know what you mean. It's not like what you want to blow up, but, you know, you take what you can, basically.
Exactly. I think, I can still take advantage of that. And, you know, if like, I get a lot of people subscribing who are just interested in the memes and not the streams, you know, that's their choice. I can only persuade them so much, and that is okay. I'd rather not have loads of inactive subscribers, although I will say, guys, if I go to my monetization page, it really is just a numbers game, you know? Oh, I'm too weak. Only 175 subscribers exactly can save me. Oh, please. You know how those mobile games have, like, those really weird, like, you have to save the princess. What will you do? Like, oh, you know, it just, anyway, let's talk about the end of Fazbear Frights before I waste more time. Find Prankster. Why was that one?
Matt's already begged for subscribers about 4 times today.
It's just a meme at this point. I'm gonna stop doing it now. Prankster. The story was kind of unremarkable. Basically, kind of like FNaF Help Wanted, but underdeveloped. We follow Jeremiah, who has his name misspelled as Jeremy on a cake at some point, which is weird. He's developing a video game for Fazbear Entertainment with 2 people.
Hope and Parker.
Hope and Parker, that was it. Yeah, Hope is basically his love interest, and Parker is basically like the bully, rival character.
Office bully.
Yeah, and they're just like messing around, and one day like there's like this creepy prank that comes in. Like he thinks it's Parker like using a voice changer, and he has like basically like an Easter egg hunt for Jeremiah on his birthday. I don't know, it's really weird, and it's so unclear what, if anything, is happening, because he finds like human remains, which are presumably of Hope and or Parker, but it's like, what are the things on the cover? It ends with him going into a room, like a closet door slowly opening, and it's like, is it, I think it was intended to be like, oh, is it a prank, or is it actually something sinister? But it just completely flopped, because it ended way too early.
Yeah.
It was too short. There was like, Jeremiah was, I don't know, he was okay protagonist. Bit of a nice guy, but hey, some people are like that. I don't know, it's just unremarkable, honestly. I'm gonna give it a D, I think.
Pretty much. It's a story that is really just out of place, it feels like. And I don't know what they were going for on this one, honestly. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I get why it's the cover story because it looks cool and all, but I think the cover tells us more about the story than the actual story, which is just... And
like, it adds so much potential for like an interesting Help Wanted tie-in. Like, honestly, this theory of like man in room 1280 connecting like UCN to Help Wanted in like a linear timeline somehow, this could have really helped it. Because I still can't get my head around that fully, just because like the evidence isn't really there, and I feel like it just hasn't been communicated. And maybe as a fandom, to get that kind of, flow of story, we're having to create the blanks and really fill them in with our imagination. Because it's just, I don't know, it's disjointed.
There's a lot more questions than answers here by the end of the story. It's another one of those that's too ambiguous. It was intended to have a lot of theory fodder. It's still got a bit, but it's just too ambiguous for my taste.
Agreed. In terms of theory fodder, actually.
This is the shortest story in the entire series by a significant margin. It ends in about, I think, like 40 pages or like 37 or something. They take short stories seriously. Like, it's very short. It feels like it ends extremely abruptly. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. The plot starts off, like, fairly boring in the first, like, third of it so far, basically. And then after that, it just becomes this kind of Saw-esque thing where Jeremiah is through different parts of the office. He finds disembodied body parts in each one of the office rooms. And he thinks that's Parker the entire time, but then he gets to the end. And, I mean, as he starts to see more body parts, then he starts to think, okay, this, like, probably isn't Parker. And then he gets to the end, and he sees Parker and Hope on a TV, and they tell him that it's all a prank, but there's things that suggest otherwise. Parker looks very menacing for whatever reason here, and then after that, the closet door next to him opens, and then the story abruptly ends. So, I will admit, the closet door opening and the story just abruptly ending there, it freaked me out a little bit. It actually gave me, like, very slight chills just then when I was describing it. Yeah. So, it's pretty creepy, but it doesn't really go anywhere. You have no idea what's going on. The only thing you can guess is that it's one of the things on the cover, which I have an entire theory that makes Prankster make a little bit more sense, but it's pretty convoluted, so I don't really want to go into it right now.
Alright. Another time.
But overall, it's just... Yeah, I'll tell you about it later if you want after we finish the stream.
Sure.
But, yeah.
We gotta get the stream moving, but it's underdeveloped, like, and I didn't really, it was creepy, but I didn't feel like there were really much in the way of stakes. Like, okay, yes, so something horrific could have happened to Hope and Parker, but, like, I mean, they did take the time to develop the characters earlier on. It's not that I didn't like any of the characters that much, and they all served their roles pretty well, but the whole thing just didn't really make sense. It's just kind of random. And again, why would Jeremy, like, be on the cake? Why is his name misspelled as Jeremy? That seems like a very clunky and obvious, like... Guys, look, it's Help Wanted lore. Pay attention.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm pretty much guaranteeing this was just a mistake. We've seen this happen several times before, there's the whole Fazbear Frights thing and what we found.
Yes,
There's one point
yeah.
where Noel was referred to as Sam, smack
Oh,
in
yeah.
the middle of Black. And I literally thought that was intentional and was hinting towards something until the very end of the story when I figured out it was just a spelling, like a grammar mistake.
Bruh.
It's really, I hate the fact that there's so many grammar mistakes in these things.
It sucks.
But yeah,
it really
the characters
does.
are reasonably well developed early on, but they don't really have enough time to be developed because of how short the story is and how abruptly it ends. It just feels like they're walking stereotypes a lot of the time. Jeremiah is like the nice guy basically that's shoehorned in as like the hero. Parker is the stereotypical like mean office bully, and then Hope is just a damsel in distress essentially. Like there's a lot of stereotypes with the characters that never really get developed beyond that.
Honestly, I might actually move this to an E just because they are stereotypical. I
might agree with that.
I just really unsatisfying.
Yeah, the writing is pretty weak. The characters are just walking stereotypes. There's not a whole lot there, and then the entire thing is just so ambiguous that you like actually cannot figure out what's going on. Like,
there's just nothing to go off.
I have a theory. I have a theory. It's largely based off of the cover. I would not come to any conclusion if I did not see the cover on this. The entire story itself is just so weird, so confusing, and so out of place.
Yeah. And this is like the first story of the final volume. Well, if you're not getting 12, which is a bit different. So it's a bit of a disappointment. Did they even try with these last stories? I guess not. Some of these, I don't know. Some of them just
They did try with some of them. They didn't with others. There's some stories in the later volumes. The Cliffs, Pizza Kit, Find Player 2, all great. And then there's Prankster and Kids at Play and Gumdrop Angel and like Puppet Carver and a lot of others.
Yeah. The disparity in quality between a lot of Fazbear Frights is baffling to me because it's like the same two authors for the vast majority of this. Yeah. I don't know. Again, I don't know how exactly
would be the worst book if it weren't for Find Player 2 saving it at the last second.
Because Kids at Play, which is next up, is probably a D. It's, I don't know. It's just like a mediocre and generic attempt at similar concepts done before. Oh man. There's a guy who, like, accidentally runs over a kid and then gets turned into, like, a sign. Do you want to explain this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do a summary on this one.
I see chat, by the way. Boo-boo kiss. One like is one boo-boo kiss. But yes, very funny. You should review them, though. It's very interesting to analyze these.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so this one's pretty weird. This is a story that starts off very well and then goes off the rails very quickly. So the plot of this, the main protagonist is a 18-year-old named Joel. Joel is a bit of a jerk. He's not the worst protagonist in the series. There's worse, but he's kind of up there. He's a pretty big jerk. So the main thing about him that like makes a lot of people hate him is that he's completely reckless, especially when driving. So it picks up, he gets in a fight with his parents, basically, and he starts driving away, it's not like at their house, he works for his dad, basically, at a garden center. So he starts driving back to his house.
Oh yeah, the garden center, I remember now.
Yeah, garden center. So he drives back to his house, and he just speeds, basically, the whole way there. It's what he does to blow off steam, is he just speeds on the roads. So he crashes into this little figure, this sign, basically, that's a Kids at Play figure. So it's basically a warning, kind of like, hey, slow down, like there's kids that are playing in this area. So he just kind of scoffs at the thing, basically, kicks it aside, gets back in his car, and drives back to his house. The rest of the first half of the story is pretty much just world building and character development, which, to its credit, is done pretty well. You figure out, like, quite a bit about Joel during this sequence. You figure out his relationship with his parents, his relationship with his bandmates, because he's in a band. His dream basically is to become a musician and move away. I actually do appreciate that they took the time to develop this character. I think Joel is actually quite a good protagonist.
He's more like the guy from Hide and Seek than the guy from In the Flesh, because he's very angry and quite negative, but you can see why. And there's, an interesting dynamic of, like motivations and like power at play with his parents and his band and stuff. And yeah, he's got a lot of things he's like pretty upset about, which lead to, him taking out his frustration on driving and then speeding into somebody. Yeah, it's...
Yep.
And the kids
So,
that play
speaking
signs
of
are like
which-
figurines. They're like balloon boy size, like child-shaped neon green like figurines holding a sign. And the one he knocks over at the start has a weird sludge that comes out from under it after he's moved, I think, which
That's true. Yeah,
might
we've thrown
connect to
a
what's
few-
saying on. It's
We
weird.
bounced a few theories around about that, and can't really come to a conclusion on what it was, I think, but that's just a small part of the story anyway, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if it's important.
Yeah, hard to tell at this point. So yeah, so about halfway through the story, Joel gets in a fight with his bandmates. He gets all pissed off. He starts driving home. It's dark, like it's already night by this time, so he can't see very well. And of course, he's pissed off. He's in a car, so he's speeding the whole way home. He rounds the corner, and then in the exact same place where he hit the kids at Playstein a few days earlier, then he ends up hitting an actual child, about 5 or 6 years old. I believe his name is Caleb. So
Yeah.
the child basically, I think, rolls into the ditch, and Joel stops for a second and freaks out and is trying to decide what to do. And he decides that he's just going to drive off, basically, to protect himself, because he knows if he calls for help, then he's going to get in trouble and he'll go to jail. And he just decides that he's not even going to stop, render aid, or anything. He's just going to drive away and try to forget about it. So
Yeah.
that makes it a bit harder to sympathize with him throughout the rest of the story. Like, his motivations are understandable, they're just not moral.
Yeah, no, he makes the wrong choices. He's cowardly and aggressive. He just, goes about everything the wrong way. Does he deserve what he
Basically,
gets? Yeah. I think it's kind of like with, let me think about this. It's kind of like with, Together Forever, I think. That's about how likely it is. Or Hide and Seek.
Not
know.
like an all-around awful person, but definitely you get what comes to you. It's hard to
Yeah.
hard to feel too bad for him.
So he drives off, and then they begin a search, don't they? The town.
Yeah, drives off. The next day, then he and his dad are driving into work. They decide they're going to stop for donuts. They go in. The woman working at the donut shop, finds out, I believe it's her grandson that was actually the boy that Joel hit the previous night. So she's upset about that. She's freaking out. She's like, they're calling in a search party for him. So Joel starts feeling pretty bad about it.
Yeah, that's a
so he goes
lie
back
to her
the car.
face.
Yeah. Tries to forget about it, basically. Ends up going to, I think it's like a hardware store of sorts later on. And the Kids at Play figurine basically starts stalking him everywhere he goes. He looks out the window. He sees a Kids at Play figurine. He goes to the, where is it? The, I just, said what it was, a few seconds ago, and I forgot. It's like a department store, I guess? Hardware store.
Yeah. Garden Center? I can't remember what exactly.
Yeah, I can't remember where it was, but he goes to some building, some store, and he starts freaking out because he sees the thing outside the window, and then a few seconds later he starts hearing this, squeaking sound, basically, of it, following him around. It's really weird because, the main antagonist of the story is a sign, a literal sign the size of Balloon Boy. It's kind of weird. It's not very intimidating, and it's pretty absurd. So I thought that I saw where this was going, and could not be more wrong. I thought what the ending was going to be was Joel goes out to the road, tries to find out where the boy is, and then he gets hit by a speeding car. Karmic justice once again.
Kind of like Friendly Face.
Not even remotely what happens, and I don't think there's a single person in the world who could have predicted the actual ending in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes out of nowhere.
So, Joel goes back home. He tries to sleep. He falls asleep. He wakes up a few hours later, and he finds that he is not controlling his own body anymore. He's instinctively actually moving around, getting dressed. He can't stop himself from getting in his car and driving to the location where he hit the boy, Caleb. So he gets out of the car next to the ditch, and he just stands there. And then this part is by far one of the weirdest things that's ever happened in Frights. He turns into a Kids at Play figurine. So I couldn't even figure out what was going on at first, but apparently that's what he ends up doing. So
the description's very weird, very gross.
Yeah, his teeth fall out, his skin starts flaking down.
It goes
a very gory
body part by body part. His eyeballs come out last,
Yep. So he just starts losing all his senses, his
really
skin
grim.
is falling off, his eyes fall out. It's pretty gruesome. It's kind of
and he's not in control of his body. He can't do anything.
Yeah. It's a pretty freaky concept. But again, it's pretty absurd, and on top of that, it's kind of hard to feel bad for Joel after what he did.
Yeah, it's yet again another concept that doesn't make sense, isn't really ever explained or kind of elaborated on with the in-universe logic. Again, with, like, you know, Ralpho, Ella, Fetch, they're haunted, like, animatronic items. You can get why it's happening. Even the curse of Foxy is kind of working within the, you know, emotional energy, you know, 0-point field logic and Fetch or whatever, if you want to be strict about it. I mean, there is agony or something, like some kind of black tar thing on the floor in that maintenance room, which people think is, like, agony. And even the weirder ones, like Blackbird, could be more symbolic or, like, could be, like, open to interpretation. Cliffs and Pizza Kit are, like, psychological. There's nothing actually paranormal. But this doesn't fit any of those. It's like with the Fazgoo stories. It's like with Prankster and In the Flesh. It just kind of happens, and that's it.
Yeah, there's never really a very good explanation for it. There's a few hints, like, as to why it exists, more so than something like Fazgoo, but it's not really helpful. It kind of comes out of nowhere.
The kids that play signs are owned by Fazbear Entertainment. That is specified, I believe. Yeah. It's a project or something to raise awareness for safety on the roads.
This is kind of like, it's kind of like another case of What We Found, where I feel like I would have enjoyed this one a lot better if it had a different ending, where, let's say, instead of turning it into a sign, like I said, Joel feels an immense amount of guilt. He ends up going back to see what happened to the kid that he hit, and then he gets run over by a speeding car, and that's the end of it. That would,
do you know why that would have been
tied back to the Karmic Justice theme?
Yes.
It'd be a bit of a repeat of Together Forever, but all in all, I still think it'd be a pretty solid story. I think it would also
be a repeat of Friendly Face, but I think that would be better for two reasons. Number one, theme of karmic justice is, you know, better presented. It's got more irony. His, like, you know, fate is actually directly, you know, connected very clearly to his mistake, and it's the exact same thing. It's just he's on the other end of it, which is perfect karmic justice. But also, that actually works better with the in-universe logic. If that was what happened, this could also be like the Cliffs and Pizza Kit, where there's nothing paranormal at play. But if there is anything paranormal at play, it's pretty much just kind of random chance, maybe being affected by the emotional, you know, intention. Maybe, you know, the signs are infected with agony, can, like, recognize, you know, that, Joel has, done this thing and now he deserves this justice, but I don't think that's even as good. But it's not as bad as, like, him turning into a sign. That was very random. It was very strange. Like, it just kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know. The theme of the story's good, and I think the writing of the character's okay. But the pacing, the horror, I don't know. I'm giving it a D ranking, I think. This one was barely passable.
I'd say that's fair. It's honestly pretty solid up until the ending, and I think it actually could be a pretty strong story, like, around the level of Together Forever, like
maybe
a B or like a high C. If
the ending was
like
good.
A different ending, like I said, if it tied back to the theme of karmic justice and nothing supernatural happening, just like Pizza Kit and all that. But no, instead, for whatever reason, with absolutely no build-up whatsoever, Joel turns into a Kids at Play figure. It's very over-the-top and weird, and it's gore to the point that, like, in the flesh, it was kind of too over-the-top to actually be scary. Again, like in the flesh, the protagonist isn't the most sympathetic, so that kind of weakens the blow as well. So any scariness that it had really, you know, isn't there anymore. It's very over the top. It's very absurd. The ending comes out of nowhere, and they wasted all this good build up and all this good character writing for pretty much nothing, and it's really a shame.
Low C, high D, I think. I'm putting it in D. Yeah, it's a real shame, but that is what it is. I don't know, Duncan. I don't think Fazbear Frights is that cynical. I just think in experimenting with what Fazbear Frights could be, Scott and or the authors of the books just kind of went in the wrong direction. I think like, I don't know. I feel like the people who wrote these stories weren't really familiar enough with FNaF before writing them, sadly. I think that's because I feel like the first 6 volumes were probably concepts dictated by Scott that they just put into words, whereas with the later volumes, Scott probably let them write their own stories, which just don't work as FNaF stories, and in some cases are just bad stories.
Some of them work, but few and far between.
Yeah. Let's talk about Fine Player 2, because this, I think, saved Volume 11. Thankfully, we actually had a decent story to finish things off before the final epilogue.
Fazbear Frights
man.
actually ended on a pretty big high note. So
Yeah.
I love Find Player 2. It's not my favorite story. Like I said, it's Pizza Kit, but this is one of my favorite stories, probably. It's a pretty great one. And this again, like this ties back to the theme that I really like in Fazbear Fright stories of it manages to be scary without over-the-top paranormal horror in any way.
Yeah.
It's completely rooted in reality, and it's very scary, and it's actually, I think, really interesting the whole way through because it gave me a ton of Silver Eyes nostalgia, interestingly enough.
It did. So, this story, guys, basically, oh man, I can't remember their names. I'm gonna have to look this up. This is, Find Player 2.
The protagonist is named Amy,
That was it,
and
Amy, and
her childhood best friend is named Mary Jo. And
that was it. So,
the William
it
Afton parallel is
starts-
Emmett Tucker.
right, yeah. So it starts with Amy and Mary Jo, two young girls. They're like complete opposites. Basically, Amy's a good girl and Mary Jo's like the more chaotic one, but they're not like tropes at all. They're very interesting characters. Mary Jo is quite an unfortunate background. She's like an orphan or something, and they're at Freddy Fazbear's in like the 80s, and they go and play in these like secret tunnels. There's like this attraction that exists behind like a wall grate, where if you go down like kind of in the walls, there's like a waiting room and then these tunnels where people can play basically a game of hide and seek, but it's called Find Player 2. 2 players. I guess they couldn't reuse hide and seek, so they had to come up with something else. And yeah, it's like Freddy Fazbear's voice announcing like, you know, Find Player 2, and there's all these booths you can hide in, and yeah, one person's hiding and the other's searching, and yeah, it's really tragic because there's a bit of tension between Amy and Mary Jo the last time that they see each other, and like Mary Jo is normally the seeker. Amy just likes to sit and read her book while hiding, but they swap roles for once. And Amy, while searching for Mary Jo, is scared out of the tunnels by like another exit that's in like around the back door or something, by Emmett Tucker. There's a creepy man who is extremely reminiscent of Silver Eyes William Afton, called Emmett Tucker, who is basically creeping around, and he follows the young girls into the tunnel. And that is the last time that Mary Jo is ever seen. So we skip forward like 20 years, like 15 years, to Amy, like, at university, fully grown adult, like, I think she has a boyfriend already, and it's like, she wants to go back to her hometown to find out what happened to Mary Jo. So you can see the Silver Eyes callbacks, and, like, this is an amazing setup. There's been nothing like this in Frights yet, where it starts with a flashback and it jumps forward decades. Usually the story is like, you've got a child protagonist or an adult protagonist. This one has both.
I love this setup, like the bait and switch of it, because I really thought this was going to be like Amy's story as a 10-year-old the entire way through, like Emmett Tucker's stalking them throughout the maze and like the ending leading into that. But no, we only see that for like about 10-15 pages, then it jumps to the adult Amy, and it actually does it really, really well. I think they told everything they needed to from the childhood perspective before jumping into the adult perspective. It's a super nice callback to Silver Eyes. It's a fantastic setup, great character writing.
Yeah, like they spend time developing the characters. Even Mary Jo, despite the fact that this is the end of her story, they spend a lot of time developing her. And yeah, Amy as well. We see how she's changed, but also how she's not changed, you know, over the years, and how this event has affected her whole life. And it's like, she's, you know, a nice, relatable, pretty good protagonist. She has her own flaws. She's a bit too curious. Oh man, thanks man, thank you very much. I've got dinner here, guys. This stream has overran like way later than it should have, but we gotta finish this, okay? So I'm just gonna get on with this. Yeah man, time zones. If only Amins could join us sooner, but I get it. So yeah, Amy, I guess she does have a weakness, but she's one of the better written adult protagonists, kind of up there with Delilah in my opinion. And yeah, she basically goes back to her old town. She like completely relocated towns after the incident to find out what happened. I think at one point she goes to find Emmett Tucker in his own home. She brings a taser with her and everything. It's super tense. It's like she doesn't trust him. He is actually a convicted criminal who was released from prison a while ago for another crime which wasn't related to Mary Jo. I think I can't remember what it was. It was like he kidnapped someone, I think. Like, he kidnapped a child.
He was accused of kidnapping someone. I don't think he ever actually did.
Yeah, it's actually not confirmed. He was accused of kidnapping a child, not Mary Jo, someone else, but it was never confirmed. So he's really suspicious, and it seems obvious he kidnapped Mary Jo and, like, murdered her or something, right? That's what it seems. He's like William Afton. But Amy's in a difficult position, because effectively what she does is intrude into Emmett Tucker's home. And when they have a confrontation after some tense dialogue, he grabs her, and she doesn't successfully tase him, and he locks her in the back of, like, his caravan, or, like, whatever it was. He's, like, really poor. His, like, whole place is, like, super small. And he calls the police. So Amy is the one running away from the police in this situation. She manages to escape, she drives away, and then she goes to where the Freddy's location used to be, which is now like a garden center kind of thing. They've got like a whole theme. There's like this cow character they have, the mascot.
Yeah, it's an entirely like, new restaurant, basically, a themed restaurant.
But yeah, she escapes the trailer. It was a trailer, but yeah. It's a new eatery that's basically, again, built over, not like the mall in Silver Eyes, it's just like the place has been completely, I mean, it's been like 10 years, so things have changed. But she uses the excuse of going to the toilet to sneak off into a back room, basically like a cleaning closet, like, you know, storage closet. And after some exploring and hiding from staff, she finds the old grate to the Find Player 2 game underground. So she manages to, like, you know, wrench it off, quietly get down there and activate the game again, because all these years, the game still hasn't finished. They never finished the game and found Player 2. So it's like it's still there programmed, like waiting for like the game to end that was started, you know, the day Mary Jo went missing. And Amy, she goes down there into the cubby holes and manages to get locked in one. She gets locked in one, underground, deep in this hidden game where no one is ever going to find her, only to look across at the cubbyhole on the opposite side of the corridor, which is now open to reveal Mary Jo, who has been dead for a long time. She's just a skeleton at this point. And it's so scary, because the story builds up to be one thing, and it doesn't lean into the paranormal even there, but, like, you realize that actually, Emmett Tucker was probably innocent. Weird guy, not a nice guy, but innocent. And, Mary Jo just got locked in. And Amy is incredibly guilty, because technically she abandoned her. Amy is the one who left Mary Jo behind to die of starvation or asphyxiation or whatever, you know, lack of air, in that cubicle, sealed away, which is presumably the exact same fate Amy undergoes, because she starts pounding on the glass, screaming, but no one can hear her. And there's a scene at the end where, like, you know, the server who was going over to, you know, Amy when she made her order at the like, you know, new eatery is like, oh, where's that lady gone? You know, she was nice. And yeah, she's just like tucked away deep underground. And yeah, it's super scary. It's really well paced. The characters are nicely developed. There's a nice plot twist. It's just saves Volume 11. Real highlight of Fazbear Frights. I think I might give this an A or an S.
Pretty much,
it's a pretty good story.
Pretty much the best possible way that they could have ended Fazbear Frights, I think. This is everything that a Fazbear Frights story needs. Great character development, fantastic pacing, lots of psychological horror, and then big plot twist at the end that changes everything, because as it turns out, Emmett Tucker did nothing, and technically Amy was the one that got Mary Jo killed. When she's been running from her guilt, basically, all this time, trying to convince herself that she didn't abandon her, she ended up actually being directly complicit in her death. And then, again, the karmic justice comes back,
bingo,
ends it off, and then that's the end. And super nice callback to Silver Eyes in so many ways. Amy is very similar to Charlie. Emmett Tucker is a very nice spin on William Afton, like a very nice take on him, where it ends up that, like, you know, he probably didn't even do anything wrong in the end. Mary Jo kind of reminds me of, say, let's say, like Marla, maybe a little bit. I don't know. Jessica,
man,
it's
I don't think she has an exact equivalent, but yeah, she's damn, I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know.
If anything, Mary Jo is kind of like Charlie. I think they both got similarities. Or maybe, like, Michael or someone from the novels, you know, the kid who actually got kidnapped and died.
Yeah, but just all around, like, great callback to the Silver Eyes. It ends it where it started, basically. Ends the book series where another book series started with a much darker interpretation of how it could have gone. And then
honestly, that's just actually brilliant.
Everything that a Fright story needs to be good, I think this one has.
Which is why I'm actually going to give this S rank. I know I've been very generous, guys, but I think it's fair to say, I mean, this story, like, ignore everything else, but alright, this is just my opinion, but, like, this story really is everything Fright should be. So I'm glad they ended on a really high note. It was very well written. I think, like, there's not a thing I would change about it. Everything about it was, you know, paced really well. And the lore relevance is surprisingly high. You didn't think there'd be much, but yeah, there's some novel tie-ins and everything. It's really good. It's really good. And with that, we've almost got everything. Now, I'm not ranking the epilogues or Volume 12 alongside the rest of these books because I haven't read Volume 12. They kind of scrapped content, so I don't know if they really count. And the epilogues are kind of structured in a whole different way. So this is my final tier list for Fazbear Frights. This is it. That is all of Frights right there. That is my tier list of each and every one of the main 33 stories. And yeah, here's the well, the epilogues aren't supposed to be on here, but this is the I'll just shove these down here. They're not actually badly written, guys. I'm just moving that out of the way. This is the alignment chart, is what I meant to say. I did have a separate tier list planned for the epilogues, but I'm really not sure how to rank them. I was looking back at them, and I'm really not sure how to rank them, so I'm going to let Ambience do this, because I need to end the stream soon now. We've been going on too long, so I think I'm just going to close it off here. We can still talk a little bit about the other things we want to say, though. It won't take long. But here they are, guys. This was a bit messy, but it's interesting.
I can kind of do, like, my own ranking of the epilogues. I'll tell you guys what, I'll post that on the Hydration Nation Discord server after the stream is done. I'll go ahead and rank the epilogues. I'll use, like, Matt's epilogue tier list, I think, like what we started with there for 1 through 6, and then just kind of place 7 through 11 on my own.
Yeah, I don't know, like, thing about the epilogues, if I actually just reset this and just use this, the thing is, each one is going to have different criteria. Epilogue 1 needs to introduce things well, which it does, but it's, like, it's nowhere near, you know, terms of, like, you know, it's not like the epilogues 10, 11, you know, climactic, you know, character arcs and stuff. And it's like, you know, epilogue 9's a bit weak because it just, I don't know, the pacing fell off and didn't really know what it was doing. I don't know, like, there's different criteria for each one. Like, epilogue 5 needs to do something different from epilogue 6. Epilogue 6 was, like, the first climax. Epilogue 5 was, like, the last build-up. 5 was a bit less, I actually reread Epilogue 5 recently. There's actually not a lot that goes on in it. 3 is amazing for the lore relevance alone. I don't know. I'm really not sure. So I'm actually not going to make a tier list of those, because I'm really not sure how to rank them. I think I'll pretty much agree with whatever Ambience says anyway, because surprisingly, we're pretty much on the same page about all of this. No pun intended. But yeah, I don't know why Volume 12 was scrapped. I don't know. Anyways, I gotta eat my dinner, so I think the last thing I just want to talk about briefly was FNaF in general. I mean, Fazbear Frights is over, but there's a new book series on the horizon called Tales from the Pizzaplex. What do we think of this? What do you think it'll learn from Fazbear Frights? Hopefully.
I feel like this is kind of a new beginning for this type of series. Like, I think that Scott has learned from a lot of the mistakes that he might have made with Fazbear Frights, like the later volumes, hopefully. Yeah. I think Tales from the Pizzaplex, who knows? It may go downhill eventually, the same way Frights did. But I think the first few volumes are going to be extremely reminiscent and really capture that old Frights feeling of the first two Frights books. Yeah, because that's a feeling that, like, I've wanted back reading this series, like, for quite a while after getting into the later ones. Nothing quite matches the first few books. Yeah, so just very much looking forward to that. I think another thing that it's going to do, which I think all of us need, is it's going to fill in a lot of the gaps in Security Breach's lore and clarify some things. I think this could very well take place in the game universe.
It seems to me that there is a gap between Help Wanted, Special Delivery, and Security Breach, like an actual long gap in the timeline. We're talking 5, 10, 20 years. And I feel like Tales from the Pizzaplex is gonna, like, buff out, you know, and give some, like, substance to everything in Security Breach. And I think what we see in Security Breach is just a glimpse at, like, how things ended over there. But I think, you know, the existence of the Pizzaplex, the existence of all these characters and attractions and everything the way it is, lots of tie-ins with the notes you find throughout the game as well. I think all of that is entirely possible from Tales from the Pizzaplex. What I'm absolutely hoping is that Tales from the Pizzaplex has some kind of running narrative, like the Stitch Race stingers that happens throughout the you know, books. You want to collect them all and, like, get that, like, epilogue story, and that could be awesome. Something huge relating to Vanny, you know, and actually give her some, you know, time as a character, or it could just be some other random, you know, characters like Larson who may have a good or a bad ending that aren't really, you know, connected to anything, and are kind of resolved by the time of Security
maybe
Breach.
Maybe even like detailing what happens to Burn Trap after the Blob yoinks him away, and kind of give like some background to that. Maybe even turn it around somehow. I mean, I feel
like we need information before, but I don't know. Like, I think, you know, the mystery perhaps of Glamrock Bonnie could come up, you know. I think we might find out, you know, who Dave was. And most importantly, what I hope that it doesn't do is what a lot of the later Frights did. If I actually look at my list here, if you look at the actual kind of trend, S rank has volumes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11. A has, you know, 3, 4, 5, 9, you know, we've got like 1, 1, 2, 10 here. It's mostly earlier volumes. The entirety of volume 8 is down here, you know, a lot of volumes, you know, 9, you know, we've got one from 5, 7, you know. The first 4 volumes are entirely, I don't think any of them are below D rank. I think Lonely Freddy and Dance With Me are the lowest, like, ranked stories from the early volumes of Frights. And the reason for that, just generally speaking, is because, personally, the early volumes of Frights were consistent. They had, you know, a clear feel. They were FNaF. They were a twist on FNaF, but they were their own thing, and you could see how they all fit together. And they weren't repetitive and tropey. Each and every story was very unique and hit hard, except for Lonely Freddy and Dance With Me. But hey, you know, that happens. It's not going to be perfect. I seriously hope Tales from the Pizzaplex settles on a twist on FNaF. Maybe it could go more sci-fi rather than paranormal, and do what, you know, Friendly Face might have been trying to do, but for, like, the whole thing. You know, because the sci-fi thing seems to be a thing with Security Breach, like, compared to the paranormal, but obviously there'll be a mix of the two. I hope it's consistent, and that it doesn't shift, or, like, you know, like introduce random concepts and random stuff that doesn't really make sense. I imagine there could be a lot of callbacks to older stuff. I think we could be surprised with a lot of, perhaps, stories or parallels that are heavily inspired by early games like FNaF 2, you know. We've had a very heavily inspired FNaF 3 story, we've had a very heavily inspired sister location story, maybe one about the FNaF 2 location, maybe we could actually have the puppet get a bit of a story.
That'd be interesting. I do think something that's interesting about Tales from the Pizzaplex, though, it seems to be what the name is implying, is Tales from the Pizzaplex. So I'm curious how they're going to have all these stories be in one location, presumably.
It is a big location, but good point. How are they going to do that?
Yeah, it is actually like a very interesting concept to me, because the Pizzaplex is. I think the Pizzaplex is an awesome location. I don't think we even see like the full extent of its potential in Security Breach. It's just this like almost never-ending sprawling maze, essentially, of all these different like paradise-like attractions and all these rooms and stuff. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface in Security Breach. And I've had this thought many times while playing the game and getting lost. This place seems like a death trap. Like, there's so much more going on here to meet the eye, considering it's Fazbear Entertainment. And I'm really curious to see like just how this book series handles that.
Yeah, I definitely think they could introduce some like completely new out of left field stuff as well. I mean, already the blurbs and the covers for the revealed stories, like what's it called, Lally's Game or something? Like Tales from the Pizzaplex. I mean, Lally, it's interesting that they mention that, because Lally was a name from Pizzeria Simulator. That was the name on one of the adverts, I think. Like, for a character, one of the weird dolls from Sister Location. But it's like, is this Lally? What is this, like, baby robot-looking, like, thing? Like, who is this holding their shoulders? What's this? Like, this whole thing has me asking so many questions. There's also Haps with this big machine thing. Like, I have no idea what this is. I think there's gonna be a lot of new concepts that are gonna explore maybe the construction and how the evolution of the Pizzaplex in ways we couldn't have imagined before. You know, maybe how it was actually built, how attractions opened and closed, how the whole structure of the building changed. You know, maybe explain a lot of little things in Security Breach. A game shouldn't have to rely on the books like a crutch, especially for something like lore and story, but I think it could actually work pretty well here because, you know, for all of its flaws, a lot of those weird small details in Security Breach aren't relevant to the, you know, main plot, and you don't need to explain them. So this could actually work really nicely as a, like, tie-in that's kind of just, like, optional canon rather than required to understand what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely. Just hopefully that'll handle, like, if it does end up being in the game universe, hopefully it'll handle that well. Hopefully it won't dip into absurdity like the Frights did eventually, but
like, if Fazbear turns up here,
definitely looking forward to it. I was actually really kind of sad when I heard that Frights was ending a while ago. So once this was announced, like, I was actually really happy.
Yeah, it's cool that we're getting this kind of content.
Yeah, I think last thing to talk about today is just like looking back now that it's all over. What are our final thoughts on Fazbear Frights, like as an entire series?
I mean, I'll start. Fazbear Frights was exactly what FNaF needed. I think doing Goosebumps-style short stories in volumes like this was a fantastic format that really fits in with the world of FNaF, the whole universe. And, you know, I think, aside from the really wacky experimental stories in the later volumes, it was pretty much perfect. Most of it was pretty well written. You know, lots of very iconic characters, locations, you know, both, like, you can catch those characters like human protagonists, but also, like, the animatronics. I like how we got a dog animatronic. Fetch was a really interesting concept, but, you know, also, like, Pit Bonnie, Eleanor, some fairly familiar concepts to start us off in Volume 1, you know, before dipping into stuff like, you know, the psychological horror where there isn't really a bad guy, like, you know, the Clifts, and, you know, what... Bro, my memory is so bad. Pizza Kit, that was it. You know, a whole variety of really creative takes on FNaF. And a lot of really good examples of horror. There were a lot of lows, but looking at this tier list, I think this kind of shows, like, ignore the not available category. Like, there was a lot of average content, but there were a lot of really fun stories, in my opinion. And I just think the main issue seems to be that FNaF's world building is kind of vague and inconsistent, and I wouldn't mind it being a bit clearer. I mean, I know we've got alternate universes and stuff at play here, but, like, I don't know, it's weird, because, like, some of this could totally happen in the real world, but then some of this couldn't, but you wonder how it affects things, and it's like, this has a mass effect, which is, like, never addressed again. I love, though, that there are these Stitch Rate stingers, these epilogues, that thread the entire thing together into this, like, connected story, although it only mentions, like, the best ones. I love the characters and the concepts like Larson and Jake and, you know, Eleanor and, you know, Taggart. I love like the interesting additions to the lore as well. I think Fazbear Frights 1 to 6 was kind of like the last you know, bit of exposition on the original 7 games mysteries. I don't think we're ever going to get information that directly connects back to, like, what was going on with Sister Location and Pizza Sim ever again. I think that's it now. Because we seem to be moving into, like, new territory that really focuses. I mean, Tales from the Pizzaplex isn't going to go back to FNaF 2, 3, 4. It could have some kind of connection to them, but it's going to be based in this Security Breach kind of, you know, part of the universe now. So yeah, I don't know. It wasn't perfect, but I think it did a lot. I think it was a big step up from the novels, which kind of sucked, in my honest opinion. And I think it's provided the franchise with a lot of good stories that are underrated and deserve more attention. I think they'll leave a legacy too, as their kind of part of the thing. And that's it. That's it. Over to you, Ambience. I'm just gonna catch up with chat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of weird to think that Fazbear Frights is over at this point, just because, like, the speed they were releasing books at, like, I couldn't keep up, basically, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have, like, a huge backlog
They were
of
releasing
these to
so
read
fast.
Yeah. And then I finally finished it, and yeah, I don't know, like, I'm really glad that this series even happened in the first place, and I do wish it got a lot more attention from the FNaF community, because I think it really deserves a lot more credit, especially the early books.
Yeah.
It's just, like, I don't know, it's just an amazing and really unique way of looking at FNaF, I think, and it's exactly what we needed during the long wait for Security Breach. Like, a lot of people were super pissed off with the wait for Security Breach because it was like 2.5 years,
Yeah.
you know, like after Hope 1 came out. And they're like, when are we going to get new content? And I keep telling them, I'm like, we already have new content. Like, there's a new book coming out like every 2 months. Like, and they're actually really good. Yeah.
And if
like,
you're being stuff specifically of games, there are so many fan games out there. There are so many, and there are good ones too. There are ones that aren't crap.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it filled the void perfectly, I think, during all of 2020 and during most of 2021. And then now Security Breach is out, and the next step is Tales from the Pizzaplex. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, I really like that this even became a thing in the first place. Just, like, thinking if my favorite story was canon to the Stitch Wraith Epilogues, you know, like, back when the first, like, 3 or 4 volumes were out, and like, each time a book came out, like, there was one story that was revealed, like, that it was going to be connected to the epilogues, and everyone was super excited about it.
I wish they kept that structure the whole way through. I feel like they could have done that.
I know.
Maybe it would have got too predictable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, the fact that, like, none of the stories after Book 6 are explicitly shown to be canon is, like, a bit annoying to me, but at the same time, I can understand it, because a lot of stories got, like, really out there after that.
It's, like, better... I'd rather these weren't confirmed to be canon. Like, imagine if, like, Fazgoo was brought up in, like, Epilogue 6 or 7.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. And there's some stories that I think stand better on their own, like Pizza Kit, for example.
Yes.
I think that just stands way better as a standalone story. But yeah, I don't know. It was just an incredibly fun adventure, like, the entire time that Fazbear Frights was coming out, just catching up with all the stories, like, theorizing about these individual parts of the FNaF fandom, and then just, like, you know, dropping it and moving on to the next one, basically, ranking stories, figuring out which ones were the best, which ones were the worst. Yeah, it was just a really enjoyable experience all the way through. I think it's exactly what FNaF needed to fill the gap between Help 1 and Security Breach, and I'm super glad they're continuing to format, like, into this new generation.
Definitely. I'm realizing now that, like, oh man, what was I gonna say? I can't remember. Chat, shut up about Fazgoo, Jesus Christ. The, yeah, the whole, like, formula, I mean, I don't know, it's just cool. Way it was structured, and they're like, I don't know, I'd rather that they took risks and experimented, rather than, like, you know, pump out really samey, safe stories. I will say, there's this real, there seems to be a big issue with FNaF right now, just generally, just as the entire thing, and I feel like it's kind of struggling with its identity, because I feel like everything up to, like, you know, its 5th anniversary, even including Help Wanted on top of Scott's Collecting Games, it was pretty clear what FNaF was, what it was about, what it did. But, although I'm all for experimentation, there's this real divide between Fazbear Frights and the newer games like Security Breach. Specifically that, like, the games are really trying to pander to kids and be kid-friendly, when the books are going hardcore. If this stuff was made into a TV show, it would be 18 plus, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I really, like, as an older fan who has been here since Five Nights at Freddy's 3 hadn't released yet, like, I wouldn't mind if it matured with the fandom and we kind of, you know, cemented it as something that was kind of, you know, doesn't have to be, like, extreme, but, like, you know, like 15, 12A rated, you know, M rated, I guess. But, like,
I get what you mean.
It feels like it's trying to be too many different things that don't quite meld together.
Yeah, it's definitely like I understand where you're coming from. It's definitely quite annoying that they're trying to market it to super young audiences because it kind of worked like with the first few games. Basically, the game could be scary like without a ton of
Mm.
blood and gore. I think that's what a lot of people actually liked about it.
Yeah.
But then they just started like when you incorporate dialogue and stuff, like they just start trying too hard. It feels like there's some stuff out of place in a horror game.
Yeah.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, even though it seems like FNaF is having a major identity crisis right now, they're trying to go in different directions. It feels like that kind of is FNaF's identity in a way, something that looks super kid friendly and innocent on the surface, and then the deeper you look, the darker it gets. Like if
That's
you
true.
look into the books and the
That's
lore
true.
and all that, it's just unbelievably messed up compared to the like child friendly exterior.
That's exactly how it started. I remember, like, with the very early games, people would say a lot of the things people have started to say again now, well, non-FNAF fans specifically, about it being, like, like, for a younger audience. But when you look deeply into it, it changes. Because, again, the theme of the mask, appearances and deception is a huge thing in FNAF. It's like the next thing after, like, consequences of your actions. Or maybe they're equal, but, like, yeah, I don't know. I think you got a point. I think that's fair enough. And, like, the merchandise has been pandering to kids for years. Like, it was terrible before Help Wanted was a thing, with, like, Funko,
Yeah.
dishing out all kinds of crap. And I don't know. You're right. It's not a big deal, guys. It's not this big problem that needs to be rectified. But, like, I really hope Tales from the Pizzaplex can blend the two, because it is looking to be a mixture of Fazbear Frights and Security Breach. This... I know these are really high expectations. There's a lot riding on this, but this could be the thing to bridge everything from the last, like, few years. Pretty much everything since UCN could be, like, bridged with Tales from the Pizzaplex. I think at least some of those stories would be good. Same writers,
Like I'd love it if they combined like the surface level like kid friendliness of Security Breach and added the darker like parts of Fazbear Frights into it. I think that would work incredibly well because on a fundamental level, the Pizzaplex, like I said, the thing is a death trap, like if it actually existed. So we know that Fazbear Frights, again, this is FNaF, like behind closed doors, like bad things happen in the Fazbear Entertainment Company. That's what it's been about all along. I think it's great. My only issue with it is that it feels disconnected, where the games are pulling it one direction and the books are pulling in another. And if Tales from the Pizzaplex can merge the two, I think FNaF is in the perfect spot.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair summary. Because the world building was one of the things I had a problem with Frights. I didn't really make sense to me. And like, I'm still confused about like the separate like timelines, continuities, because obviously like not every piece of canon material can be happening in the same universe because there's contradicting stuff right now, like especially the novels, obviously, because the characters have completely different happenstances at different times. But then it's gotten really murky. Like I assumed that Help Wanted was a reboot when I saw the intro, but loads of people didn't. And now I'm really not sure because Security Breach seems to be trying to go back to Pizza Sim with the Afton ending. Even though I think it's garbage, like it seems like they want to continue that somehow. And then there's like Fazbear Frights, which is its own thing, except it isn't maybe. There's so many like connections. I don't know. It's not an easy mess to clear up, but I honestly wouldn't mind if Scott just straight up told us. He won't, but maybe we can get some clarity on that, because Tales from the Pizzaplex is in the game universe. It's the first books we've had that actually directly connect to the same story of the games. Like, whatever Security Breach's relation to Ultimate Custom Night and everything before is, like, that's game universe, It's
Yeah,
like,
I think this
we'll
is
see, game
like
stuff
pretty much. I think this is pretty much what we have to do at this point in the FNaF series. Like while we're waiting for Tales from the Pizzaplex, it's definitely a mess. Like the story is just thrown every which way, basically. But theorizing is basically picking up the pieces of it and trying to fit it to make sense, I guess. And Tales from the Pizzaplex will, I think that'll actually help quite a bit with that. So I'm looking forward to that.
I hope it does.
But yeah,
Anyways.
until then, I guess it's just clearing stuff up. Pretty much endless debate to be had about certain theories, the reboot theory, like certain timelines. But yeah. So I guess we can keep figuring that out, and then when Tales from the Pizzaplex comes out, then hopefully that'll make things a bit more clear, and we can finally figure out what the deal is with Security Breach after all. And there might be DLC at some point as well, and hopefully that'll explain more.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just gonna wait and see. Alright. Whatever happens,
much all
I'm
we can
sure be interesting. We're in a, you know, there's still a lot of moving parts right now. Security breach wasn't the end, guys. It's probably just the beginning in some ways. I'm gonna go now.
Yeah.
This stream has gone on way too long. Sorry for keeping you here so long. Trapped in the purgatory of reviewing Fazbear Frights Ultimate Custom Night, but it's just Mr. Matt forcing you to read through all this FNaF lore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun.
Little less than 4 hours. My lunch just got here, so it's pretty much perfect timing.
4 hours is like, you know, you shouldn't go longer than that without a break. So we're gonna go now, guys. Thanks for watching.
Yep.
Like, share, subscribe. Support is all appreciated. Check out the links in the description. I've already plugged myself plenty. You know what to do, alright? As for today's QOTD winner, I actually didn't see any answers, but Duncan just said, all I hope from Tales from the Pizzaplex in terms of taking from Fazbear Frights is that it actually takes note from the good stories, particularly. So it tries to do what Fetch 1:35 AM did. Yeah. I hope it's consistent, but that was the only answer, so you win it. Duncan Potter, you are today's question of the day winner. His link will be in the description, guys. If you want to get in touch with him, check out his YouTube channel. He's done some funny content. He actually made one of the Master Mist memes as well. Yeah, go switch your browser to Ecosia. It takes like a minute. It's super easy. It's really like the best thing. You can plant trees just by passively searching. You don't have to think about it. No donation needed. And your data isn't being used by, you know, Google and other corporations for who knows what. And yeah, my social medias are there. Ambience is just tagged because he's a big boy. He can have that. And yeah, check him out. Alright, go watch Ambience. He's doing live streams playing Five Nights at Freddy's fan games. He's been doing having a bit of a FNaF fan game renaissance lately because he's finally finished, you know, playing through Security Breach. And yeah, making his own like tier list of just all the FNaF fan games to get a hand on. He's been doing Jolly recently. He's also got guides. And you know who this guy is. I was actually in these videos as well, if you want to go check those out. But yeah, this is the place to go to for help with any night in FNaF. If it's not here, it will be in time. But anyways, yeah. Anything you want to say before we end this now?
Not that much. Just, yeah, both these streams have been a great experience. Can't wait when we eventually do a Fazbear Frights timeline.
Yes.
We'll definitely be there for it. And, yeah, this got me pretty hyped up back in the Frights again, I think. So, if you want, then after I eat lunch, I can share some of my theories, like what I was talking about with Prankster.
Absolutely, please. We'll talk off camera, but yeah, guys, Ambience, we'll be doing more streams. There'll be another debate direct in probably like a few months, you know, looking at more Fazbear Frights lore, all kinds. So keep an eye out, alright? And, yeah, if you want to get in touch, join my Discord server. Join his Discord server. It's a great place, honestly. Like,
yeah.
This is the place to be for FNaF.
I'll be finishing up my my epilogue tier list and posting it on the Hydration Nation Discord server shortly after this, right after I finish lunch. And yeah, so I can either text you with the theories or we can get in voice call if you want. Yeah,
I don't mind. Anyway, thank you so much for joining. Wolf Nation, I'm sorry you came in late, but hey, the stream's still here. Go back, it's all there. I'm actually going to be adding timestamps like I did before. Going, alright, it's time to crack open a cold one with the boys. My mum brought in some San Pellegrino, it's basically a sparkling orange beverage, that's what it says, so yeah. Everyone, stay hydrated.
That's right.